just talk about the trends, I guess, more or
But
less.
one of the good things is that now the hobby is so big that there is room for way more versions and flavors of it than it was 20, 30 years
Right.
ago or 40
And
years
for
ago.
people that are like yourself that develop content that's really good, that's a good thing to have that. Because, you know, before it was very niche. There wasn't a whole lot of women doing it. There wasn't even a whole lot of people doing it.
Exactly. Now there's
tons of them now. So it's good for that progress, for sure.
Yeah.
I know 10 years ago, you're probably like just scratching the surface of it. You know, you probably still are. So I'm excited for the Mappers Delight. I'm looking forward to seeing some faces, but also there'll be some common, like you yourself. There's a couple other people that'll feature. But I like looking at the new blood and seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And haven't even been able to talk to them. That's the whole idea, is get you guys together.
How many people?
So far, I have about 8 different people.
Wow. Okay.
I think 12 would be the max.
Yeah. Have you talked to Nathan Mangian?
Not yet.
Nathan Maps. You should talk to him. What he's doing is super impressive. I think we need to have him on a fantasy mapping show. Yeah, mapping show, because what he's doing is he's the only one doing it. So
like I wanted to listen to you at one point.
Oh yeah.
Like I already had Chris on a couple times, but he might help me host the show instead.
Cool. Yeah.
So instead of having, you know, we'll still show his work, but he won't really necessarily be able to just, you know, it'll be more or less like a host.
Yeah.
Just a segment. So I kind of like that, to have someone that's doing the maps and then somebody that's not.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Now I
was
think
asking
they can.
Twitch audience, Captain
Twitch audience, if they can hear us, because now we're live. Yep.
Just want to make sure.
Yep.
We're good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
I'm gonna host a channel.
Perfect. Yeah.
There we go.
Cool. Thank you.
We are hosting.
Awesome.
It's important that we do that because.
Hello. Oh yeah, I try and host as many as I can, but the problem is now the auto host doesn't work anymore, and you got to manually do it. So you got to be on, you know, at the right place, right time now.
They have. Is that a security measure from Twitch? They don't want any.
I don't know what the thought was behind it. So we did it.
Yep.
Bad actors.
Yeah. Ruining it for everyone.
Well, yeah, we just have to have systems that are a bit more robust, so to speak, and realize they're here. They're everywhere.
So I got some snow here. I don't know if it's still snowing, but did get the snow. Tell Brian that you're on tonight. He uses Fantasy Grounds a lot, buddy. So I'm telling him right now. See if we can get him to use a mod.
That's good. Yeah. Good to have moderators. There's not very many of those out there.
Yeah.
That can do a good job. You know. Like when I moderate, I have a list of links. I have, you know, multi-tabbed windows so I can, you know, go to look up things and paste them in the chat, you know, try to do the right thing, you know, and watch for trolls and stuff. I like trolls.
Rarely get them. Rarely do I get them, so.
Yeah, I mean, just those, whatever those sex bot things and the other thing that comes on, like the spammy stuff and all that stuff. I like those. I kill those. I get to slay those.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post on Facebook, like was it 6-7 years ago, about the trolls, and I need to publish that one again. I used to have
Revise it.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. There's a I'll find it.
I should have a picture of you slaying the troll.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. You can even keep house trolls and stuff. That was the fun part. You keep a few house trolls and you nourish them, so you keep it fun. So yeah.
Yes.
The problem is that the trolls are getting nastier these days. So
oh yeah.
Yeah, they were more fun back in the day.
The fire doesn't kill them anymore.
Exactly. They level up. The trolls level up, so they kind of
Or they reincarnate.
Yeah.
Wofford used to be a troll.
Okay.
He was a really good troll.
So you hired him full time as model.
That's right. I mean, he's good at it.
Hey, darling, thank you.
He's changed a lot too. He's very objective. He knows the community pretty well. He's bouncing around conventions and developers and all kinds of stuff. So he's
many awesome people in the community here. So yeah.
Yes, that's cool.
Looking for yours. Oh my gosh. Scrolling down.
Hey, it's all your awesome partner videos here or sponsor videos.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Keep them all rolling.
Yep.
I like the troll art guys. They're really nice.
Yep.
Oh yes.
Chuck's not going to be in a good mood if the Cowboys lose. So.
Well.
No, they're losing now, but yeah, it's early.
Cowboys suck anyways. I'll tell them that. I want the Bengals.
There you go.
That's been my team for my second team. My Seahawks kind of sucked this year, but Bengals have given me renewed hope in the NFL anyways.
What's up, Geek Puppet?
I'm more of a soccer guy anyway, so I'm more into soccer than
You've got European habits, or the rest of the world habits, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm more into soccer. I'm a soccer freak. So.
Well, it's the biggest sport in the world when it comes to the number of people that.
I used to play soccer.
I played it's inevitable as you grow up in European.
Darling, that's good to hear though that you're gonna start doing some mini painting. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's fun.
Very cool. I am happy to hear that. It's still down, so I'm gonna I guess they're off on Martin Luther King Day tomorrow too, so I'm gonna contact the management at Reaper. I cannot order any gift certificates right now. That part of their site is down. It's kind of lying through it. I don't know what's going on with that. It's ridiculous. But I will talk to them.
Castles and Crusades and Level Up are the two sets that I'm kind of going in between to use, so to speak. So future, so we'll see what happens.
So Mike. So at worst, Chuck said he's going to text me what he's going to do as far as Fantasy Ground Troller Games giveaways. So we'll at least get that. But I'm doing one physical one as well. So in fact, I'm going to start that up now.
Is that U.S. only or is it?
I usually try. I ship to Canada, believe it or not.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it is not. Costs go up everywhere.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just crazy, but
And shipping is worse than everything else when it comes to costs.
International costs.
Yeah.
The guy wins something to send it to Austria.
finally getting used to the time slot here, you know. So
That's good.
yeah, it used to start 7:30, but it works much better 7 o'clock. So,
Yeah, it's right after dinner, and it's not too late, but it's
Yep.
yeah, it's a good time. It's prime time for sure. Works out for me because it's early. Not for me because I like to go to bed early. So 4 o'clock for me. So I must be getting old because I go to bed early.
Oh man, I have off
Stay up
tomorrow.
all night.
First time my company's ever given off. 27 years for tomorrow.
It's a good
It's an
thing.
official holiday, so.
It means they're progressive.
Tonight, a really cool discussion. Okay, I'm gonna put Dolphin's head up there. Dolphin's hat. Because I had it, so.
I see it on the something. It's on your screen.
Awesome. Get a nice Seer Kiss Me reference. Normally we come on a couple minutes early, so since the music's over here, I'll come right on. Get started tonight. Pretty cool discussion. So good to see you. Boom. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jay Killer Gazumba, and I got Anna Meyer with me.
Hello.
And in a very small pic, he's not showing his picture right now. In the upper left-hand corner, because he's got a virtual OBS cam going, is Laren, Fantasy Grounds Academy. Welcome.
He's have to put on his headset.
Oh, there we go. He's back.
Yep.
So he's like popping in and out there. He's like the smallest person we've ever had on there. So, how are you, man? Good to see you.
Good.
You okay there?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, so we're live, and so welcome,
Okay.
man. Good. Yeah.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. So he set up a virtual cam, and we'll be able to make this a little bit larger. And so once in a blue moon, we like to show what features and abilities are out there for you for gaming. And VTTs, I know a lot of you use them. I've used them a little bit on my channel, not for me DMing, but Brian had done it back in the day. And I think this is maybe a good direction for Tim's game with his Rovers group, so he can get some maps set up. So Laren was kind enough to come on, and we may have some other people hop on too, and discuss some options beyond just knowing all the rules and knowing how to use Fantasy Ground. I'm gonna make this pretty easy and basic tonight. So at minimum, we have this. We'll give you away Treasures of Greyhawk and Swamplight as the giveaway to sign up for two great things. Multiple adventures here for Greyhawk, and Swamplight's a cool 2nd edition module. So we'll give those two away. And then Chuck from Troller Games has said he's going to hop on and give us some resources that are going to be available for Fantasy Grounds. A couple giveaways on that too. But he didn't go into detail, so I don't know. So we'll sit tight on that. So Laren, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with VTTs.
Sure. So I'm kind of an old school gamer. I started in 81 or 82. I guess that's kind of old school.
Yeah.
Back then, that was childhood kind of passion that grew over time. Back then I was very poor. I didn't have a lot of toys and that sort of thing. And, so role-playing games were perfect because I could use my mind and pretty much travel to any world and play in any game just using dice. I remember I actually created my own basic role-playing game without even knowing what they were. Just used 6-sideds, and I I made some kind of weird battle game that I played with my friends on graph paper. And that was before I even knew what D&D was.
Cool.
And then once I saw what D&D was, I went nuts on it. My uncle found a container or a storage facility that he bought that contained somebody's collection, and I inherited that collection. So Fate actually is what kind of started me on it. So I had a Ravenloft and a lot of classic modules that probably would be worth money now if I still had them. But that's what started it. And then as I got familiar with that, I played with my neighbor kids, and we ended up kind of playing together. And I taught everyone in my neighborhood how to play because I was a little older. And then from there, I kind of took a break after I got into high school. I discovered things beyond gaming and took a little break. And then when I got out of school, I got back into D&D, and I had a girlfriend actually played D&D. So that was cool. So I did best of both worlds, and I was able to maintain a table. I had like 12 different people playing, and they would rotate. They'd rotate out. It wasn't the same 12, but and then we played Cyberpunk, and we played Palladium back then, and we did all kinds of different rule sets. So that's where I got my knack for just role-playing games, period. I wasn't just doing D&D back then. It was a little bit of everything. I tried everything I could get my hands on it. I also was a collector, so I collected a lot of the content, the books, the maps, and all that good stuff. And I think maps was one of the things that kept me engaged with role-playing games, because without the maps, I don't know if I'd have the same passion. But when I used to get those box sets, I had the big fold-out maps that would cover your entire living room floor.
Yes.
Those were the days that kind of kept me there. And then even the smaller, colorful maps they have now are pretty nice. So that's one thing that really keeps me engaged.
Awesome.
So I went to work and didn't have time for role-playing games very much, but I did stay up on the lore and the different editions. I quit playing when 3rd edition was coming out, and then I started playing again in 2016 with 5th edition just coming around. And then once I realized that you can play online, I went ahead and updated my version of Fantasy Grounds. I had just the basic license, never even used it, didn't even know how to use it. So 2011 is when I purchased the license, and I actually started playing in 2017. So that's how much time. Yeah, I mean, I bought it a long time ago.
I did not know that.
I was actually one of the very first users of Fantasy Grounds.
I
back
bet.
when it was the Finnish company that
it was
started
still,
it. Because one of them used my maps and pointed me to it. So I bought a license very early on and had it, and that license got lost somewhere, so I bought a new one. Then I'm not sure if it worked, and I kept it somewhere. I didn't even try it. So then I got a new license again many years later, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I got in right when Doug purchased the license from that company, because I don't think they were still developing or anything when I first purchased it. And then after 2016-ish, at the end of 2016, I got a big tax return, I remember, and I went out and bought a whole bunch of stuff for 5th edition. I had a table of like 8 people, and boy did I learn learn the hard way. So what I found is that you're able to play online, and that was the big allure for me, because it's hard to get people to come over to your house even before COVID, and the traveling, and then people have families and all this other stuff. So it just became a no-brainer for me to learn how to use the platform. I spent a lot of time fighting with it and struggling, and trying to learn how to best use it. And that's kind of what started the Fantasy Grounds Academy, or we used to call it college, is just the first thing I did was teach people how to make characters, because that was generally what the most problems were centered around that.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just got some more people helping, and now, we're close to 10K over, 3 years past that. Now, not everyone's active at once, but I mean, we've had, anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 people active at once.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's grown pretty steady. We've had ups and downs, more ups and downs, and we're still chugging along, still showing people how to use the platform as best we can. We're more or less trying to inspire them to use it, not kind of got away from, okay, we're going to teach you how to use it, because that's how the first iteration of our community was. Let's force everyone to learn this system, and now it's a little bit more casual. It's more or less, let's show them what we do, let's inspire them, and let's help them if they have any questions, instead of, you got to use this system, and kind of pushing it on them. So I myself have backed off from that mentality, and now I'm even more flexible. Like, I'm starting to use other systems, not just D&D, also branching out, looking at other virtual tabletops, and learning what works best for my table, and also for others.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we have Fantasy Grounds up right now, and one of the discussions I had with Jay, and I've talked to Anna about this too before the show, is getting in on the initial wave of virtual tabletops is kind of where we're at now. It is matured, but 5-10 years ago there was barely any of it. I think we're kind of in the cutting edge of it, if you want to say such a thing. And I really believe that we're kind of like pioneers in a sense of this kind of Wild West thing that we started with, and now it's kind of getting more refined. It's getting more detailed, and we're getting to an apex here where we have the opportunity to change over to mostly digital and less hard print. Not saying there's not room for that, because definitely I like my books, but and my printed colored maps and those sort of things. But I do think this is the future. I thought that in the beginning when I first started, and I still feel that way to this day. So.
Yeah, and I think that virtual tabletop will be a useful tool. I would keep it if possible, even when I'm playing around the table.
Yes.
So to speak. So yeah, I think so, because especially having all my big maps and stuff, it's much easier to present them using a projector or a screen than it is to print them, because print them is ridiculously expensive, and since I update them basically every session and between every session, that means that will be impossibly expensive.
Yeah, I can see that. I thought about all of Jay's miniatures and how to get those onto a virtual platform when you're not able to play online, or when you're not able to play face to face.
Well,
so one of the things, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jay have done an amazing good job, because he runs a lot of remote sessions using his tables with some webcams and stuff. It works surprisingly well. Yeah,
it's pretty effective, I have to say.
That's a virtual tabletop in a way too. Yeah,
in a bizarre sort of way.
I like the idea that he has that vast collection, and there's some of that stuff is very nostalgic and very collectible, and then some of the stuff is just having a big collection. One of the things that I thought would be very cool, and also I don't know if you guys ever played Skylanders, but it was a kid's video game mostly for younger children. And basically you'd put the tokens on this little base, and it's connected to the video game. So you had symmetry, but then you also had this little icon of who you were playing. And it recognizes them as soon as you put them on that little platform.
QR codes at the bottom, at the base of the miniatures, and then you put them on, and the screen recognized them. And Microsoft had one of these where they actually had it was meant to be like a restaurant table at hotels, check-ins or whatever. You just put the paper on there with the QR code, and it recognized you. And one of the things they showed was a D&D game using the same thing with miniatures with the QR code, and you put them down, and you could see the stats around it with the points and all that.
I always thought that would be a good marketing thing for like Reaper miniatures. So if you buy if you buy that mini, the physical one, you're able to use that QR code in your for other games. And I thought that was a very powerful thing that I was thinking about. The Skylanders was what got me thinking about it.
And I think technology is going to intrude into physical around the table games in very
Yes.
interesting ways in the next 10 years. And
I think you're right.
yeah, so I think we will see a lot of interesting, cool hybrid technologies come in, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember they had a show that we had some guests on where we talked about that, and there were some VR folks that were partnering up with different VTT platforms. They're already, they have a wand, and then another company has some glasses, and
Yeah.
so I think it's coming. It's just going to be a while.
And one of the most obvious things that I've only seen a few tiny examples of, but it is coming, and that will be to have dice that will be enabled. That will be simply a little in it. So when I roll, I can simply say, this is my to hit roll. I roll the physical dice and it adds all the stuff into it from my tools. So combine physical dice roll with a digital tool. That is coming.
Yep,
and I think that could be really cool, so to speak. So
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. You can roll your 10 D6s or D8s for like I did my hitting a real home run in crits, and you could just roll that and you could add it up automatically. That would be kind of fun.
So I know we're theoretically getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here.
Sorry.
So Sideren's asked this question real quick here, Laren. Aren't young guys worried about someone hacking the program to change their roles?
Not so much. I mean, I've never really heard about that. I mean, I'm positive that somebody out there probably figured it out, but doing that on the fly, I don't think it's able to do.
It's easier to fudge your rolls using regular dice than when you use VTT.
Correct.
So people who want to cheat should probably stick to old school dice rolls.
Stick to rolling in a box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if it's worth the effort anyway.
No, I don't think so.
And most of the client,
but it's a good question.
Yes, it is, definitely. Most of the controls and such from Fantasy Grounds are kind of locked in for the host. So it's difficult unless you use a modifier box. It's difficult to cheat on rolls, and it's evident. I mean, there's no real way to hack into it and to change your rolls. You could put a modifier in your character sheet, but it would show up on the combat tracker.
The DM can probably fudge it easier by installing some weird mod or something that is sketchy mod on his side or her side.
Exactly.
It's interesting. Hey, good question.
And in organized play, when that's starting to happen online, then that becomes, I think, more of an issue, because then it's more at stake and you play with strangers and stuff like that. So I think that's where, and also when you have starting to have prize money and I don't know, big tournaments and stuff like that, then I guess it could be more of an issue.
So I would give that a 1 out of 10. I don't think that's a big issue with this platform anyway.
Okay. Good to know. Very good to know.
Yeah.
So, Laren's been kind enough to put some stuff in, show it, and give us a little tour of some, I don't want to say the word mundane, but really uses that beyond having to know the depths of Fantasy Grounds and using it for some things that you may come in handy just if you need to have access to maps or lore or whatever, instead of just the game, all the gameplay and everything is right there in the system. So I got you on a virtual cam here set up. So what would you like to show us to start off here?
Well, first of all, I want to mention that you don't have to know everything about Fantasy Grounds to use it. Even though I teach people and show them how to use program with our volunteers and such, you can adapt it to almost any type of role-playing system that you want to use. You don't have to have all the automation, all the bells, balloons, and whistles. You can simply use it as a library and a way to display your maps and tokens. So even if you don't learn how to use all of the minutia and all the things that go with it, it's still basically a way to present data. And if you can present data across the internet and have a halfway decent interface, you're already ahead of the curve. This helps facilitate long distance play. You connect with your friends, your old military buddies, your college buddies. This gives you that opportunity to do that, but also you could use this at home around your table. You don't need internet, and that's one of the things that I really like about Fantasy Grounds is it's self-contained. It does have some limitations of going outside of Fantasy Grounds, but it even and it has pluses and minuses, but the big thing is you could take a battery or two, take it camping with you, use that to read and look at maps and such, and have pre-printed characters and play it around a campfire at night. I mean,
yeah, and all the information you use in the game is on your computer. You don't need
correct.
to store it on a web server, which means that as long as you have hard drive space, you have space for your stuff.
That's right.
So that's I think one of the big boons with Fantasy Grounds compared
Yes.
to a lot
Real
of the
quick,
other
we got a
ones.
lot of old schoolers here, and I just want to
Okay.
get this illusion out that
Sure.
1E's not in there, but 2E is. I know 2E is
Yeah.
a little different than 1E, but you can still play a 1E game with. I know
That's
some
right.
minor differences, but I know
Yes.
it's and that was done mostly by Mike Celestian. Mike Wilson got all that in because he wanted to play in that style, and he pushed for it. And now it's called
Yeah.
Classic D&D.
Yeah, and lots
Yep.
of old 2E. I saw even the Druid's Handbook was the latest that I saw.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was meaning, so there are tons of old school, like second edition D&D stuff there to even publish.
Yeah, there is a little first edition, but it's been adapted to that
Mhm.
rule set. So
Yeah, so if you're willing to play first edition or
There's
second
Mike.
edition, there's tons of
Hey,
it. So,
Celestial.
yeah.
Hey,
Oh.
Mike. Yes, so Mike, who?
Hello.
Yeah, good to see you, man. There's practically nothing different between 1E and 2E VTT wise. All right, well that's good to know.
That's
I mean,
good.
yeah, I appreciate that. You hopping in
Yeah.
with that. Thank you for stating
It's
that.
good to know.
Yeah.
So without even having to use all of the bells and balloons and whistles, I think, you can roll dice with Fantasy Grounds. Like I'm going to pick up a 20-sided and drop it in there. It gives me a result. And that's really technically all I need to run a game. It's just like around a table. This doesn't necessarily have to do any calculations. You have modifiers here on the bottom. So if you wanted to do a +5, you click +5 and then you roll. It's that simple. It's not like you have to necessarily have it attached to character sheets and everything like that. You can actually have printed character sheets or even PDFs. If you're kind of playing a hybrid mode, you could have
There's Chuck.
2 people online and 1 person in person.
Yeah.
You could do kind of a mixture, which is one of the very few features I think that most people don't realize, because I think a majority of the users focus on the online component. But if you think about it as just a tool to run your game, it's not, it doesn't require all that technical knowledge. You roll dice, show pictures, read some text, and if you have the time to enter text, you can also do that yourself. So it's it's a good tool for that.
Yeah, and this ties into a question that Sparky68 has, and that is the when you homebrew things and you want to kind of add tweaks and stuff to the rules, that's when VTTs can get in the way. And that's one of my issues, because I run now a homebrew version of 5e level up kind of version of the rules. So what I've done is that I've skirted around a lot of the automation, and now people, they're using a old school character sheet, and we do die rolling either in Fantasy Grounds or hand roll it the old way, so to speak. But I still use Fantasy Grounds for showing maps, moving tokens around and stuff like that. So you can use as much or as little of the automation you like, so to speak. I think for my case, it's the initiative tracking is fabulous in VTTs are wonderful, and Fantasy Grounds as well for keeping track of competence and the order that they're going in. That's one of the enormous time savers in using a VTT. But homebrew and special rules and stuff is a problem. So that means that you might want to skip a lot of the automation for stuff. But it's one of the definitely one of the issues to look into.
So I'm going to bring up just the module, Temple of Elemental Evil, that this has been ported over into Fantasy
Written by
Grounds.
Mike, written by Celestian, and Celestian's lurking now, and he's it's great to see you, Mike. And
So Fantasy Grounds gives you the ability to.
We'll get to your, and a lot of talks as a question as you're bringing it up to, and we'll get to that. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, about how difficult is it to make your own rules modules, and that's I don't know. But,
rules modules depends on the rule set, obviously, and how you're going to base it. Most people will use the core rule set, which is the base of most of the Fantasy Grounds rule sets. And from there, generally what will happen is people will want character sheets or dice rolls that will do some automation with the rule set. So that alone, that journey, I think it could be complex or it could be fairly simple depending on what your familiarity is with Fantasy Grounds and also the type of rule set you're trying to develop. I think the biggest hurdle, though, is just understanding how to do the back end when it comes to dice rolls and character sheets. Generally, the community is pretty helpful with that. They'll get you started. People will develop a rule set that doesn't exist in Fantasy Grounds, but it does support it to some degree. So if you're just showing dice rolls and you're showing images and text, it works really good with that. If you want a lot of automation, custom character sheets, and you want all these calculations and such, that's when it gets a little bit more complex. And you can kind of lean on the community to help you with that. And once you get your mind wrapped around how Fantasy Grounds actually works, it's not too bad in regards to the learning curve. But initially, I think when you first start, it's going to look a little crazy because you're going to go, I'm not doing all this programming. But honestly, you have to do a little bit of programming no matter what platform you use. So even if you use one of the other virtual tabletops, you're still going to have to do some of that. So in regards to Fantasy Grounds, I can speak that I've seen people want to come in and just start making a rule set. But what they really should be doing is learning how Fantasy Grounds works and understanding what they want to do in Fantasy Grounds. That's the biggest thing is having an outline and knowing which people to talk to and taking a look at other community rule sets, kind of digesting that and also dissecting it so that you get an idea of how that should work. And it's usually extensions or some kind of mods that they put on it that allows them to do some of the basic things like character sheets and custom roles and such. And that's generally where you start. And as far as like getting your artwork and text together, there's, you have to format your text, you have to get your images prepared. It's not like you can just grab an image and throw it in there if you want it to look decent or if you don't want memory issues and that sort of thing. But when it comes down to it, just being able to move text and images and then having a dice roller, and like Anna was saying, have an initiative system, it's pretty good for that. But if you're wanting a full-fledged automated game system that you're designing yourself, that's going to take a lot of programming and time and consideration and organization is kind of what I'm getting at.
So I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to see if Mike will answer this, Celestion, or if you know this, Laren. What percent of what we consider traditional 2E is in there rules wise? I'm not talking about all the splat books, but are we at 99%? What percent? Question. Yeah, percent. And what percent of 5E rules is in Fantasy Grounds? Those are the two. And what percent of Pathfinder 1 and 2 is in Fantasy Grounds? So
I don't know too much about the 2nd edition, but 5th edition is kind of almost full tilt. I mean, there's even third-party stuff in there that that applies to it. But 1st and 2nd, I think Mike's better at answering that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Pathfinder 1, that was kind of a sad tale from my perspective because they had the license for it was the first licensed rule set that they had. And they didn't have a lot of developers and such. So they were making content, but it wasn't as fleshed out as some of the rule sets we have now. So by the time they got the license and started making content for it, 2nd edition came out. And that kind of squashed, I don't think it was done intentionally, but it kind of squashed the development for Pathfinder 1. And you'd have to retroactively go back and pull in a whole bunch of 10 15 years worth of content, whereas a newer rule set you're going to grow with it. So I think Pathfinder 1 was kind of a lesson in learning how that marketing and how that process goes. So I think Pathfinder 1 was kind of their baby. They built it, they worked on it, they developed for it, they had a license for it.
Mike.
But by the time it moved over, I think it kind of, Pathfinder 2 and then Starfinder came out a year after that, or a year before that. So you had a successive, things from Paizo. I think Pathfinder 1 kind of got left in the dust in a sense because of Starfinder and Pathfinder coming out right after they made a big agreement, and they had this really cool program where you can have telemetry between your PDFs and your module purchases on Fantasy Grounds. So there was a lot of moving pieces there, and I think that Pathfinder 1 kind of got the shaft on development, but it's still there. I think, they probably got at least a third of that in there.
Okay.
And this is all the old stuff too. So there's a lot of content for Pathfinder 1. So
Excellent.
I'm sure there's more to be had.
The question I just came up was because I want everyone who plays out there. I know CNC is doing work with them too now, and to note that most of our players are either old school, 5e, Pathfinder, CNC. To note that this, whatever we're going to show here, is kind of system neutral. That Laren's going to show, but note that there's support for all your systems, right? And to note that, especially and as Antiquus says, all the 2E guides are on Steam. There's plenty of as Celestian Link. Look at all that in that bundle. I mean, it's a huge amount of old school content in there. Some really cool stuff. And that we're attempting to try and make it so that, well, if you still want to play my style and you still want to utilize this for maps or whatever, here you go. So, thank you.
And that's what our focus is. Even though I'm showing the second edition rule set, you could pretty much do this with anything. As long as you have some text and then you have some images and you have these built-in dice rolls, you can roll a D20 in any rule set that has or supports D20. So you don't even have to have that attached to anything if you don't want to. The reference manuals that are out now for official content, they're pretty clean. You have basically you can select, like, here's a player's description for the actual adventure.
Can you blow that up to full into yours so that because blow it up as much as you can, even if it
So what this is an example of a reference manual. The rule set for Fantasy Grounds in general is going to start creating, or you have the ability to make your own reference manual. This was kind of locked out before. It took a parsing tool and some extensions that Celestian had written, and
there you go.
It was one of those things where it was a necessity, but now it's evolving to where with the builder tool here, you can build your own reference manuals and bring in images and such a lot easier than it was before. So I think this is a happy medium between homebrew and producing content for commercial use. So it's going to get better. It's more drag and drop WYSIWYG now, as opposed to before you had to use parsing tool, or you had to use like a third party extension to do some of the things you want to do. So I think Fantasy Grounds is heading in the right direction to accommodate people who want to develop their own stuff or do homebrew. But it is still a little bit of work of prep up ahead. So you have to kind of, know what you're going to do in regards to creating the content. It's kind of hard to do it on the fly. You can, but it's kind of cumbersome to do it while you're playing. Okay. But it's in regards to, setting up, preparing ahead of time and, preparing your text and your images, it makes that a lot easier now than it used to be.
Well, that's very good to know. I mean, I was not aware of that. That's cool. So, show us some neat things that you think that the community would love for Greyhawk. Look at that. So that's the temple.
Yep.
That's there you go. You got Hamlet. Yep.
Yep. So here's Hamlet here. When you have a map like this that comes with content that's already created, it works really well for that. You can actually unlock these maps or images that you bring in. You can zoom into them. You can do all kinds of really cool stuff. But this is actually from the reference manual. When you break it out into the modular format, you have even more control and customization over that. So if you went to your records and you brought up your images and you have them stored there, you can not only access the stuff that comes from the modules, but you can also access anything that you put in yourself. So in this images area, I have 3 images that I imported, and I was able to bring that content in. So I'll show you just an example of the handout. So this is for what I'm using for the background, but this is something I threw together before the show that has some Greyhawk elements in there. And, you know, not without knowing anything. I mean, this is your icon, right?
Yeah, Lord
Jay,
Gazumba picture from Portrait Workshop. Yeah.
Right. And then I threw in these orcs, 'cause I thought that's a orcish empire down here, and then, you know, kind of have this fairy kingdom up here. So, you know, you could do a lot of cool things. And then these heraldry here,
Yeah,
just something
you
I
put the Dark Brotherhood in the Lord Mills. That's funny.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that you can do stuff like this fairly easily with Fantasy Grounds if you have the assets for it.
Okay.
So assets, you can buy the asset pack that comes with Fantasy Grounds. I think it's like $50 a year or $10 a month or something like that. Or you can bring in your own assets. So just for example, I got one of Anna's really big Greyhawk maps here.
Yeah.
That this thing here is pretty big, but I've actually put a little bit of effects on here. So these are like clouds that's kind of rolling over the ocean and the continent here. And if you wanted to, you can unlock this image, and you, like, I even have water. It's hard to see at this level, but I actually
clouds
put,
are moving.
Yes, the clouds are moving, and then also the water is moving. So if you look at the letters, you can see that.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty neat.
So you can do stuff like that just to kind of give you immersion. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here is using this as just putting this up on a projector or on your TV at home, using this for immersion and you know, kind of giving you ways to move things. So I'm going to close this map and go to one that's a little bit more zoomed in.
Okay.
So we got a little bit more visibility on such. So this is a map that's a little bit more zoomed in. This is, you know, the Hamlet area, I guess. And here, this is a token that's on the party sheet that you can move around to represent your group. So if you go to this hex, you know, you can kind of keep track of where they are on the map. It's really just like a token, you know, you're just kind of moving that around. It's not attached to anything. There's no initiative, nothing. It's just a way that you can kind of keep track of where you are on a map. I think that's just that alone is huge when it comes to playing online or playing face-to-face with a big TV or something like that. I think that really speaks to itself. Just having that
noting
ability.
where they were noting where. Yeah. All right. Yep. That's pretty
so
neat.
for this like Nulb here or the Hamlet itself.
Yep.
You can actually link this content to text. So if, like, for instance, if I bring up a story entry or anything that you've typed, or in this case, I'll bring up the module itself, and I'll go into the modular part of it. So if I go into the story entries, what I'll get is this modular view of the content. Now this is, you know, depends on if you want to create this or not. This is another thing that ties in with the reference manual. So some of this stuff is repeated, but this is more in a modular format as opposed to just a book or a PDF. So if you wanted to link something from like Hamlet, I can go and search for Hamlet, provided I can spell it correctly. So here's Hamlet to Nulb. This is just the interlude for that particular adventure. So if you wanted to set this up, you could technically take this, drag and drop it onto the map, and there's a pin there for you to reference. So when you come back to this area, or you want to pull up this map again, you'll have the pin that takes you right to the text. So you don't have to do that search anymore. And that helps you organize your settings. You can even have a blank story entry. So let's just say that you were traveling and the DM wanted to do some homebrew, let's say. So if you click this add button on the bottom right, this just brings up a blank story entry. And you could just say, this is session 710 or 7 of 10, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And if it's session 7, you can come in here and you can type away your notes or any of the things that occurred during the game. You can link the map here. So if I want to tie this information with the map, I can actually take the map and link it here. And then when I go to that story entry, I can go back to it and bring up the map again. So you can link them back and forth so that it's easier for you to access your content. I think that alone is really cool about Fantasy Grounds, the way it works, is that linking back and forth makes it more convenient for the players and, well, mostly the GM to access content when you need it. So you could technically format this into some sort of text that you need or that you want to type out or make a journal out of. As long as you have some of the assets already created, this is a lot easier to just link things back and forth. But you can make story entries. So you could technically say this is the beginning of my story. If you highlight the text, and you can use any number of formatting for however you want it to be. So 1 would be body text. Control 2 is a header. Control 3 is this text box that will send the text into the chat window. Control 4 is a bullet point.
Move that window a little bit down because it's.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So we can see what's.
Yep. So
writing.
basically, Control 1 through 6 changes the format so that you can change however type of formatting you want. So you have an inline table, you have a story entry or a link in this case, you have a bullet point that would be indented, you have the story. So if you click on this little bubble, it sends that text into the chat, so that could be read by your players if they have access to the screen. And so there's all kinds of things you can do to create content on top of stuff that you've already own or things that you want to put together. So it's pretty modular in that regard. So that's just one usage. I mean, you could take this big map and stretch it out and have it up on your screen and move things around. So if I wanted to add an asset that I don't necessarily want the players to mess with, but I want to put it in myself, you could do that. So if I take, for instance, an asset that I have in the system. So if I go to my records, or excuse me, the menus, and go to assets, I can get into the assets folder, and this is where I would store all my tokens, portraits, and images. So images are basically your maps, your handouts, those sort of things. They're more for show and tell, basically. Portraits would go onto character sheets. So if you're going to use character sheets in Fantasy Grounds, there's a way you can select those. And then tokens go on to like NPCs and that sort of thing for the or players to customize, so that you don't have to stick with a portrait picture. You can actually have a token that's represented. So what I'm going to do is go to images, and I have a campaign folder here, which is unique and specific to this campaign. So if I wanted to use this in this map for some reason, I have like this Knights of Olek folder, which is some maps and tokens and such, or I can go to a subfolder that has all the heraldry. There's some map symbols on here, I think, that Anna built for Greyhawk. So I can use.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I can use some of these. So if I wanted to, I could add these to the map.
Yep.
And interact with them as a game master. So that would be something that you could do, and it's kind of a permanent thing for the players. They can't interact with that, but the DM can, and that's a good feature to have.
How did you get them in there?
The images themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the back end of Fantasy Grounds, in the actual directory, there's a folder that you can access where you have an images folder, a portraits folder, and a tokens folder. And what you will do is go in and dump those in there and organize them a little. And then you hit refresh, and that will refresh your assets. So whenever you add something, you click the refresh button, and it'll build the preview.
Were they dumped in from Photoshop?
No, it's just a
No.
regular file that you put
Yeah.
in your folder.
Oh,
PNG.
okay. It's
Yep,
an image file. Oh, got it.
A
Okay.
PNG or
it's just
a
a
JPEG.
folder. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can PNG and JPEGs are the only ones I think it can.
All right.
handle,
So you
but-
have that image folder added, and you use that for Photoshop. For
I put all
okay.
my I simply directed Fantasy Grounds to store everything in a Dropbox folder. That way I have it automatically backed up as well.
Okay.
And then I just dump everything maps I do it, just dump a JPEG copy or PNG copy in that folder, and all the portraits I'm using, I just dump them in the tokens folder, and then Fantasy Grounds can find it. Yep.
So for
cool.
tokens in Fantasy Grounds, that's actually a token for an NPC or for a character. For map assets, those are actually images. So you can have them reside in both areas, but just to let you know, they're a little bit different. The terminology might be, token might be this, what you think this is a token, but this is actually, in this case, it's treated as an asset on the map. So right now, this image is here, and I can click on it and move it around if you need to. You can resize it. So if you hit the control button, you can move it, you can rotate it. So if you have it selected and you have this layer selected, you can take and rotate it around if you need to. You can actually change the tint and the color of it. So if you wanted to, change this, make it more themed for however you want to use this, you can. You can change the transparency so it's not so dramatic. You can have it more in the background if you want. So you have some kind of minor Photoshop tools in Fantasy Grounds. They're not as robust, but you still have some of that type of functionality that you can use. So that's just some things that that you could do with Fantasy Grounds that makes it a little bit more usable outside of just being stuck with.
Resize it. Yep. So what you can do technically is that you can take the terrain background on my map and then download the symbols, and then you can make your own version.
Correct.
The problem is that you can draw roads and borders and stuff, but once you start having lots of them, I don't know how that will work, but technically you can. So you can basically recreate the map using the assets and stuff inside Fantasy Grounds, and then you have an editable copy that you can just move and change things, rename them or whatever. So the problem is that labels, text labels, I'm not sure you can put.
Yeah, you'd have to create those probably beforehand.
Yeah,
the text labels and make
but
little.
But you can put in the symbols, and you can name them in the layers, and therefore you can get the names there. So the players can't see the names, but you can.
Well, the good thing about this is there's so much open space in Greyhawk everywhere, except for the one area you're showing Verbobox. Right? It's the only area that's all tight. Everywhere else is. So if you're doing an adventure and you want to ruin Keep nearby and on the fly, you just pop it right in there, which is pretty neat. Which is a pretty neat concept. Or an orc encampment or whatever it is, and you can do that, and then as you go, and that's pretty cool.
So you can paint on the map if you wanted to, to put something on there, or like you said, a road might be something you want to do, or maybe you're keeping track of where you are.
And there's some styles, and you can kind of set the color and the opacity and stuff. So and
you can brush paint with objects, so you don't have to just use the lines. You can use objects.
There's some advanced cool stuff for that when you create your adventure maps and encounter maps and stuff. That can be
you can use textures, or just all kinds of cool stuff. So there it has some flexibility in regards to creating content, but I agree, text labels are really hard to do. And it did have to be done ahead of time. So
but apart from that text labels, you can create a lot of the stuff. And the good thing is then you'll be editable during the game while you're playing, so to speak.
And it's cool. You could make the tokens accessible by players. So you can change the setting for not the stuff that I just laid down, but like this token, for instance, is on the combat tracker. And this would be the party token. If you make this friendly as a, which means that it's, an ally basically. And then you come up to the settings in Fantasy Grounds and change the setting to where you go to player view in the setup area. You'll be able to go in and allow players to control this particular token. So it doesn't all have to be the GM doing everything. You can actually have your players move the token if you want. as long as they're connected to the table. Now, if they're not connected, obviously they can't move it. But there again, it's a different style of play. So, but that's some of the cool things you can do. I've looked at some of the images over the years that had come up that I want to talk about. So this Temple of Elemental Evil and Village of Hamlet, and I was getting ready for the show, I noticed that there are so many iterations of this. So, you got 5th edition. I think this was a Goodman Games version that's made for 5th edition. Then you have the classic stuff, and then you got the really old stuff where it has these older
the
older
original
covers.
Hamlet, which is then get built into the Temple of Elemental Evil, which is in the lower right-hand corner. Yeah, there's so many different iterations of it. Yeah.
So you can do stuff like this. Like this would be like a collage. You can use this to show images, just like a picture of your character or something like that. And I put this mist on here, but you can put rain, water effects. You can actually hide this mist so that it's no longer obscuring the map. You can, if you're using battle maps, you can hide a trap. So when they go to a certain point on the map, you can spring that out if you use a layer and just reveal it as needed. You can have it visible to all or only visible to the GM or just turn it off altogether. So there's tools there that you can use to surprise your players a little bit too. Like on the map I had earlier, maybe you would put an encounter there, but it's not readily viewable until you actually get to that hex, and then you would reveal that token or even a pin. You could share pins on a map. So if I put, let's say, for some reason I wanted the players to have this world map, or maybe I want them to be able to access this regional map, I could technically pin this on the map here and bring that, just kind of roughly in this area. And then if you wanted to share that with your players, if they're connected, you could right click on this and make this a shareable link. It turns green now. And then they would be able to click on it and they'd have access to the next map or the next text box or whatever you want them to have. So depending on how you play, you can link things together, and it makes it a little bit more easy to run a face-to-face or hybrid game if you want to do it that way. So I think Fantasy Grounds has some good features that will allow you to run games without too much problems. And if you're just doing this, like showing images and such, I don't see it being a big hassle. It's really not too bad.
So, and having a laptop, you could project this too out, right? You could just put it on a larger screen somewhere.
Yeah,
or could AirPlay it too, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the cool features is that you can run a second instance on your computer in player view.
Yes.
If you run it at a table, it might be a good idea, because then the projector will be a second screen. If you run a laptop, plug a projector in, you run 2 instances of Fantasy Grounds. One that you run as a DM, then you run a second one where you log in as a player, and then you simply project that one on the player, on the projector screen or the screen you have towards the players, and they can see the player view.
That's right. Exactly.
And so that's a way to get around it, where you don't have to worry about, so you can sit and plan everything and have all the windows open without having to worry about, and then you just share things to the player view, and when you share it with the players, it pops up on the player screen.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right.
And you can even use that online, because you can in Zoom or Discord, you can share that window, the player window, with
just like
players.
We're doing now.
Yeah. And that way you also get around, if you want to use, like I do, way too big maps. That's my trademark, is to use maps that are way too big. That way you can share huge amount of maps that are way too big to transfer over the internet. If someone has like a laptop with very little graphics memory, you can actually share the Fantasy Grounds player window using Discord or something, and that way you don't have to worry about it. It's your limitations on your computer that and not the end one, so to speak.
Right. So a lot of it comes down to bandwidth too. Like if you don't have the bandwidth on not just video memory, but if you, even with smaller images, if you have like 50 different images shown across the network, eventually your bandwidth kind of, it's like running a piece of yarn through the eye of a needle.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful with, how much stuff you're sharing at once. But the way Anna is describing it kind of cuts that necessity out. So you don't really have to have anyone connected. So exactly.
Awesome. All right. So, any questions at this point from what's been shown so far? 278 tokens will cause some computers to chug hard.
Yes. Yep.
So
it does. It depends on, like, if you build with the Fantasy Grounds assets that they sell in their it's more of an internal type, their tools that they have for map making. You're not sending that data across the network. So if you use their built-in map tools and their assets that are built for the game, it's only sending the XML data, like the coordinates, the file names, that sort of thing. So that eliminates quite a bit of that bandwidth problem.
Yeah.
But when you start importing your own content, that's when the file sizes matter and things start chugging along.
Can you send like the file to someone if you have like a big map? You can send it, and then they can put it in their token, and that way. Oh, awesome! That's a way around it. Thank you. Good
so you can send the XML data as long as they have the same type of content you have. It'll reassemble it.
Okay, cool.
So as long as they have the the same assets that you have in Fantasy Grounds, not the PNGs and such, but the actual art subscription. Yes, they share maps.
Not if I make a version map myself,
correct,
can I send the file to them and they
can
put
it in
their folder? Okay.
You could. It would reassemble it. The XML would have to be sent as well.
Okay.
And it would reassemble the details that you put into the map.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily the maps, in pieces. It would be the map, but any of the effects, the line of sight, any of that stuff would be what would be stored in that XML.
Okay, cool.
So that is something you can do, but that's how they used to do it when they first started doing the changeover from Classic to Unity. Is there was a tool that extract all the XML data, and then you send that XML data, and then the next person would reassemble it and put the map and the XML together. So all the changes that you made or any assets that you included, like if you just had a base map and then you used all of Fantasy Grounds assets on top of it, you would only have to send them the base map and the coordinates. You wouldn't have to send every little piece of the of the map itself. And so you can do it hybrid, like you can use just like a base map and then use all Fantasy Grounds assets to to move around in the actual interface.
What's up, Alfred?
Yeah.
Hey, Buffer.
Hello.
So it's good in some guards.
Gonna be a little low on the volume here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we can hear
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Prometheus,
that's just cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Prometheus says Celestian did a fantastic job in the AD&D rule set. That's good to know. Cathay says, I don't have Fantasy Unity. I bought an Ultimate license for the previous version. So what is with the older version, what is the differences and drawbacks from using Unity now to that?
Well, the older version didn't have very many map tools. It was pretty rudimentary. You just had like Fog of War. You could put a grid on it, and that's about it, and put tokens and stuff on it. But for the Unity, you're going to have a lot more flexibility with the map tools. So the Classic didn't really have map tools. You had a few things that you could do,
right?
But Unity actually has that. And then, of course, the reference manual builder that I was just mentioning earlier is fairly new feature that was not in Classic. So to create your own content was very, very tedious and a lot more work than it needs to be.
Right.
So the reference manual builders is kind of making that easier for people that want to put in their own data for text and pictures. So that's one thing. Memory requirements are a little higher. So if you had an old potato computer, and you try to use Unity, it's probably going to be okay locally, depending on what your video memory is and how much RAM and hard disk space you have. But the minute you start trying to use that Unity on an old computer from like 1996 or whatever, that's not going to work. So just remember that, you know, there are physical limitations, and there are bandwidth and file limitations on Classic, and Unity kind of opens that up a little bit more. But the best practices from Classic are still true of Unity, so you still have to be kind of within reason. Like you can use bigger maps and such, but if you're going to share those across a network, you have to consider the weakest link in your table is the person that's going to have the most issues. So if they don't have good internet, or they're trying to use their cell phone or something like that, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So Prometheus, so Cathay asked about upgrading from that to Unity, and Prometheus said best deal during Steam sales. So it's better to get it through Steam in some instances.
Steam and the Fantasy Grounds store are pretty much parallel.
Okay.
The only difference is that you would use Steam and versus the directly from the store is if you live outside of the US, you're going to get pricing according to your local economy.
Okay.
And then of course you can keep track of the amount of time that you put in on Steam. And then you can also, you know, you can find out what other people are using that platform. And there's some other perks that Steam has, but in general, Steam doesn't have much to do with Fantasy Grounds. It's just a purchase point.
Okay.
And a way to keep track of your library. The only advantage on Steam I can think of if you live in the US is if you have a bunch of gift cards, then use them on Steam. If you don't, then you might as well just use the Fantasy Grounds store. So, but if you live
if
outside,
I can interject,
sure.
Alfred,
yeah,
welcome.
This talk about. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure being a guest as opposed to just a player.
Yeah, sure. And a mod.
So, right. Got a few hats on tonight, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I was about to say, I think Laren was about to get into it. The advantage of Steam is being able to get access to regional pricing. So if you live outside of the US, you know, currency doesn't always equate in a good manner for some folks. So like if you live in Europe, you'll probably wind up paying a little bit more for Unity due to like the VAT and just the way the currency exchange works. Where if you live in somewhere like South America, where the economy is a bit more depressed in relation to the US economy, you'll wind up paying less through Steam than what you would on Fantasy Grounds direct website.
Okay.
The other bit was where Laren was talking about the difference between Classic and Unity is Classic was a 32-bit application. So you had a hard limit on the amount of RAM that you could go up to.
Yep.
With Unity, it's been expanded up to a 64-bit base system that's under that. So we can go past what was basically 4 gigs of RAM is like what you would have available in a 32-bit system.
Okay.
So does that mean if I'm in Europe, should I buy from the Fantasy Grounds store and not from Steam?
I'm not telling anyone to dodge taxes or anything just, but there could be a price difference, and you know, you may need to claim certain things like you would with any other purchase online. I think would be an appropriate way to say that.
Anyway, so I think that you're right. This Steam versus going through the store, it just really depends on your scenario. But the upgrade cost between Classic and Fantasy Grounds Unity wasn't too bad. I think it was, depending on what license level you have, I think it was under $100. I think it was like $80 or something like that to go between the Unity Classic up to the or from Classic to Unity. I think it was around $80 last time I looked. And when there's sales, sometimes that's discounted depending on what's going on. So I'm not quote me on pricing because that changes, but it isn't too bad.
I got the ultimate license during the Kickstarter, so and
you should be good.
Yeah, but I just don't.
You don't use it.
Yeah. But I'm thinking that I'll work a way out so that Tim, for his Rovers game, I think he could use maps a lot because the one request was that you know, he needs more maps to show in the game. You know, because our people are used to maps. I think this is perfect because he doesn't have to use any of the other features. Everyone can roll on their own, but he can
Right.
bring up the map now. You know, I can window it because I'm producing it. I'm sorry for all these things, but you know, obviously, sorry Monkey, sorry Tino, sorry Chuck, but Dallas lost. So that's what all these things are. We got the Eagles got slaughtered today too. So
Yeah.
So you just reminded me, there's a setting in Fantasy Grounds that allows you to use manual dice entry. By default, it's off, so you just use the virtual dice. If
Okay.
you turn that on, and if you pick up a 20-sided, it's going to pop up a window that's going to basically ask for the die roll result. So if your player says, "Oh, I rolled a 13,"
oh, that's cool.
you would put that in there, hit the check button, and it'll do it. You know, if it's attached to any calculations, or if you want a record of it, that's how you do that. So you can turn the manual dice entry on and off depending on what your situation is. Like if you don't have it attached to anything, like if there's no character sheets or calculations or automation, you don't have to do that. But if you're going to run a hybrid game where you have some people that are playing virtually, some that are actually face to face, you could totally do that. So it does facilitate that.
Yeah, Laren, we should probably mention or buffering mention the different licensing, meaning if the difference between Ultimate and the other one, so to speak. Do the players have to have a license and then and stuff like that?
Okay, so with a standard license, and this applies for classic Fantasy Grounds and also with Unity, a standard license is basically, think of it like one seat. So you can host a game with a standard license, and you can host for any number of other people who also have a standard license.
Yep.
Now, with an ultimate license, instead of you just having your seat, you sit there and you've bought a table. So you can have as many people as can comfortably connect up, and all they require is a demo copy of the game. With Unity, they do want you to register on the forums, even if you have just a demo copy, and that's just to make sure they get things processed right on their end.
Yep,
it's cool.
That way, DM can take all the costs, and you don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
People can just download the
or
client.
You can table share.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
The other thing is, if you don't want to pay for that cost up front, you could do a subscription. And there were times where they offered a 3 months for 1 month. So if you were just getting in and you wanted to do like the ultimate license, but you didn't want to pay over $100, you could technically pay just the $10 for 3 months, check it out, buy a couple books. And if you don't like it, then you would, cancel it at the end of the 3 months. Now, if you cancel it before then, it's going to stop working. So some people thought that was kind of shiesty. They're kind of upset about it. But if you think about it, you're paying for 30 days. Why would you cancel it before that? And I think the belief is that some subscriptions let you cancel, then they automatically run out after 30 days. But if you do that in Fantasy Grounds, it actually cancels it right then and there. So just remember, if you do a subscription and you decide you don't like it and you cancel it, you can cancel it, but you will also lose your access to it. And you can contact customer service. And if you buy the program through the actual store, not Steam, they will give you a refund. They're pretty good about that. So if you don't like what you're getting in 30 days, you can get a refund, but not on Steam. So there's a clause to Steam has a different policy. It's like a couple hours or something like that. So if you run into this problem with Steam, that policy is different because Steam handles their.
Thank you, J.S. Glenn. Thank you very much.
Yep, and I wanted to also for the person who was asking about the upgrade price. I don't know off the top of my head how much if the discount is still going on from upgrading from an Ultimate Classic to an Ultimate Unity. Contact customer service the same way you would if you were like looking to make a return, and ask. They are very receptive on finding out, if there's something that they can do for you in that case. Yep. The worst thing you can do is not ask.
Yeah, really, because I've had where I emailed them because I purchased a whole bunch of content right before a sale. I mean, like the day before a sale. And I was so mad at myself for not knowing that. because I wasn't subscribed to the newsletter. So I had no idea the sale was coming. So I went out and purchased like, a couple $100 worth of content. I contacted Doug or somebody on the other end, and they said, you know what, we're going to refund all that for you. And then you could just rebuy back the stuff at the sale price. So, getting that sort of break is huge for a lot of people. I don't know too many companies are willing to do that and they'll take the hit for you, because I'm not saying I could do that a month from that point, but the very next day, come on, I thought, so they did work with me on that. And that's one of the reasons I've stuck with Fantasy Grounds. It's not just the automation and all that stuff. It's the community and the way they treat their customers. And that's really why I stuck around with Fantasy Grounds. And I love the people, and I love the developers, and everyone that I've come across, 99.9% of the time has been a stand-up person. I have not had too many issues with people in general. So
it's good to hear.
Yeah. And we have to also acknowledge that Fantasy Ground was one of the very earliest VTTs that has been around longer than almost any. I think RP Tools is another one that has been around forever, and Fantasy Grounds is way older than most of the ones that are famous now, so to speak, and big. So it's been around quite. It was started by a Finnish company back in the day, and then bought by Smiteworks for, I don't know, 10 years ago or 8 years ago or something like that. And but before then, it was a bunch of
something like 14, I believe.
Yeah,
I think it was 2004 maybe.
Yeah, because I started
really
using
on.
it 99, 98 or
Wow.
something like that, really that early. Yes,
Wow,
that's when I
time
got in
ago.
contact. Yeah, because one of the original or the people that I'm not sure if there was one of the original founders or someone early on in that used it, found out my maps and wanted to use some maps and stuff. So I ended up getting a license, and I started tinkering with it on my projector using my laptop and desktop back around 2000 or something like that. So, so that's what I got into it. So I've been a Fantasy Ground user longer than most, and there was a lot of years I didn't use it afterwards, but I used it in the beginning, and it was. My problem was the house rule thing. That was the issue back in those days. It was 3rd edition that I used.
And it's still sort of that way too, right?
Yeah. So I skipped a lot of the automation and just moved counters along, and that's basically how I use it for today. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're showing here is just using it for counters, using it for maps, taking it to like a convention and putting it up on a huge screen or something. It would be perfect for that. Especially if you did like Adventure League or something that's already all placed in there. I think it would be good for that.
I just double checked it on their site under their press kit. May 1st of 2004 is when it was released.
Wow, that's 18 years ago, man.
Yeah, it's been around a while.
Dumb question time from me.
Okay.
What's the most players you've ever had ran smoothly at once on a Fantasy Grounds game?
8.
You plus 8.
Yes.
Okay.
I've had me plus 6, and that worked for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more than that, though, I've had problems with bandwidth and connectivity.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had problems with. Yeah, I've had problems not so much with connectivity, but since I show very big maps and heavy graphics, I've had problems with people having very weak laptops, like budget laptops with graphics card integrated ones that with barely no graphics memory in it. So
that would cripple it for sure.
Yep. That's been debated.
Dwayne runs 8 now, so Prometheus. So it's good to hear.
But yeah, players with big beefy gaming rigs, you can probably go real high and you can show a lot of cool stuff for them.
Yeah, just remember that they have to have the bandwidth too, and try not to use wireless, because that's one of the things that not everyone has that option. But if you can get around it, don't use wireless.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But that goes for all gaming and streaming and all that stuff. Plug in an Ethernet cable if
you can.
Yep.
That helps a lot, because even if you have a good Wi-Fi connection, it's not architecturally set up for that much bandwidth. The Ethernet between a wireless signal is quite a difference in what it can handle.
Yeah.
The wireless, the bandwidth is fine. What it is it's more along the lines of how the signal latency is what adds in through the wireless, really more so now than the raw bandwidth.
Yeah, and the drops.
Wireless standards have come a long way.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
All right.
Fantasy Grounds didn't traditionally handle packet loss very well. So
Here comes my next dumb question.
okay.
How many have you played with someone at the same time? Someone in the let's just say someone in Singapore, with someone in New Zealand, with someone in Canada, with someone in Europe. Okay.
I routinely Europe and North America, and I don't see much of a difference between people, the UK and Nordic people.
Occasionally, the map will take a few more seconds to load.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's just because of the distance and the latency.
Okay.
Yep.
Just another question there.
Yeah.
Just
So the bandwidth and the computer capacity seems to be way more important than distance.
Yep.
Okay. So there, Dwayne has a player in Thailand. All right, cool. Just that's what I wanted to know, Dwayne. That's what I wanted to know was how Indian UK Groovy says. So that's good, because other people were gonna, that question is going to come up, because if you want to make a game that's accessible to your community, a VTT, then we just want one of those
one thing I want to mention about this networking thing is that Classic used to be kind of limited. You used to have to use a VPN or some kind of way for people to connect. Now with the cloud, it kind of helps eliminate some of that, so you don't have the IP4 versus IP6 problem.
Okay.
And that helps. So if you do direct connect, you're still going to have that problem in some European and underdeveloped countries, but if you use the cloud, all it does is it facilitates the handshaking and the security part. It doesn't host the game. The game is still hosted on your computer.
And I guess one of the biggest benefit of that is that you don't have to open ports through your router, which you had to before, which was a real hassle. If you didn't know how to program a router, you might not even have the password to the router you were sitting at. And before, you had to open a port forwarding, and that is both a security risk and a hassle to set up.
And a lot of the sorry, Anna, other virtual tabletops are still doing that. So if you're using one or the other, they might have that same issue. They haven't developed a cloud yet, or they're doing that and they have their own personal cloud or something like that. But Fantasy Grounds has it kind of baked in, so that helps make that process a little bit easier. So if you use the cloud, it's healthy.
Right. And I was one of the guys who at the college helped write up the troubleshooting the port forwarding stuff for when initially with like Classic. So we actually developed a process on going through helping you troubleshoot and get you to be able to open your ports if you needed to, or help you set up UPnP, or basically the best ways we could try and facilitate. And then we had to set up points to where people it's like, okay, it's got to be something going on with your ISP connection. So either Hamachi or call your ISP.
Yeah. And that's a problem with a lot of people with broadband that have TV, phone services and stuff that needs to use the router that comes with the ISP provides to you in order to get the TV and all the other stuff to work. And those might be limited in what they can do, and access can be difficult, so to speak.
That's right.
Yep.
You lose bandwidth, but then you also have some countries have more protocols in place with their internet service provider. So you might have decent internet, but they might geo block outside of their country, so you can't tunnel through that without a VPN or something.
Yeah. So now when you hook up through Fantasy Ground servers and they do the handshaking, it circumvents a lot of those issues that makes it much simpler and easier. And
I think that was one of the things that they did for the Kickstarter, was that they were going to fix that problem, because that was a huge nightmare for half of the people that played it.
Yeah. Because most of us, we love role-playing games, and we're not IT technicians.
That's
we're
right.
Network technicians who can set that up. So,
So, a couple other tricks of the trade you want to go over? Chuck is hopping on now. So
hey, Chuck.
Cool.
Shortly. He keeps on dinging me. Stop dinging me. It's snowing like hell here.
It's
snowing here too, man. Who cares? It's snowing everywhere. Yes. So he's worried his internet was going in and out. His power had gone on and off a couple times today.
Oh,
so
wow.
and his beloved Cowboys lost. So You know, so he's not doing
Well, that's
too
the
well.
main problem,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll see. I know they got some things going on new for Fantasy Grounds. So no, you're not texting me for fun, Josh. Do not start. Do not start doing that
Silence your
again
phone
during the stream,
yeah.
man. Do not
Come
do
on.
that. So yeah, any other little tricks of the trade for us Greyhawkers and basic? You know, I know we kept it very basic so far in this discussion because we just wanted to show that you don't need to get deep into the weeds here to enjoy using this, and that's
right.
a good thing. So,
yeah. I think Boffer has a couple insights that he shares quite often with these shows, and he kind of came in late, but we did cover the fact that you can just use this to show the graphics and that sort of thing. You don't have to have all that automation and such. So what are your thoughts on that, Boffer? You and I have talked about this.
Yeah, I've kicked this around with people, and basically you can learn to use Fantasy Grounds in about 20 minutes, but it's going to be super basic. And that's the whole point, is it's only as complex as you and your players decide you want to make it.
That's right. Exactly.
Is the ultimate takeaway. You don't need to have your players sitting there and even have their characters in the system, as long as you have a way that you've all agreed to where,
put this over here.
yeah, this is fine. We're just going to use this so we can see each other's dice rolls, or just as a map board. It's a good way to start and then build up complexity from there. When you build that way, you can figure out what skills and things appeal to you and your players. So don't worry about line of sight and all that stuff. It's great. It's cool, but it's not the end all be all of what makes a good game.
Yep. I kind of learned backwards, and that's why I'm here now, is I kind of went through all that heavy stuff first. And now I'm kind of backpedaling. I'm kind of looking at the easier way, because I kind of went the hard route first. And now I'm kind of looking the other way, and that's how I'm able to provide insight and help people with the platform, because I've done that hard stuff. Now I'm kind of looking for ways to make it easier.
Hi,
and
Chuck.
that's kind of where I'm at now, as as far as my own personal growth with the platform is, let's simplify it. Let's make this more digestible and less about technology and that sort of thing. So
You
hey,
doing
Chuck.
all right? You doing all right, Chuck?
Yeah, I'm all right. Hey, Aaron, how are you, buddy?
Good.
You look really mad.
Oh, no. I'm excited, man. It was a great game. It was good. Now, if we'd got the crap beat out of us, I'd be.
Yeah,
but no, it's good.
I knew it was coming.
It come down to 20 seconds, so.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you do a running play there. I heard.
Huh?
I heard
Yeah, it was pretty. What?
I heard they did some dumb running play and the clock ran out on them. Is that true?
No, what happened was we were trying to spike the ball at the end, and he screwed up and it didn't take the ball to that. The referee has to touch the ball.
Right.
So the referee had to go to the line, and he just ran right through him and pushed him aside. And they're all like, "What the hell?" And he touched the ball, and then it was over with. It's all right. It was a good game. It's a good game. I like games like that.
Mike, I'm a man for all seasons. I'm a sports guy, man.
How'd the Eagles do today, Jay?
They lost. We both lost, so it's no.
Down.
A loss is a loss. All right, so Chuck.
What?
VTTs and good old Castles and Crusades and what?
Are they fun?
Yeah, what's going on? I'm just hey, what's going on here, man? So I'm assuming you got some things going on.
We got a huge
Control
release
Board.
coming out on Map Tool. It's going to come out real soon.
Okay.
Huge. No, I'm joking.
No.
It's not Map Tool, unfortunately. Map Tool is not commercial. Map Tool is free, and it's actually really fun. That's what I started with, was Map Tool, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
It was Map Tool, and then I got on Fantasy Grounds 2006.
Wow.
And then I couldn't find anybody to explain what the hell was going on. There was no Fantasy Grounds Academy, unfortunately, at that time. So then I left, kept searching. You know how it is. You get the dark ages, and then I finally found Real 20. I couldn't get into it. So then I went back to Fantasy Grounds, met a guy named Damien, good friend of all of us. And he set me in the right direction. And many $1,000s later, I have Fantasy Grounds. I use quite a bit. I use other VTTs, whatever, to like company stuff. But for me personally, it's Fantasy Grounds. And it always will be, because Doug's got me locked in. I can't escape.
Right.
No, it's a great VT. The reason why I like it so much is that I use it. I run I don't run as many games as I used to, but I run 3 face-to-face games. 2 are bi-weekly and 1's weekly, and then I run 3 games online. One's bi-weekly and a couple weekly, and they the online ones, actually it's kind of funny. 2 of the online ones we use it like standard fantasy grounds, like you would think, right? The one game I'm running on Wednesday night or Tuesday nights is Coriolis, which is a free league press game. It's like they made Alien RPG,
Okay.
and it's real hard sci-fi. And we use fantasy grounds for maps. That's it for that in that game.
Cool.
We use dice and everything. And then in my face-to-face games, we use it as a tool. And that's one thing I really wish they would push harder with people. Like over here, I've got my laptop behind me where we played last night. I mean, initiative tracker and maps, pictures, you can't beat it for that kind of stuff. You don't even have to learn. We don't even fool with like, I've even got an extension that removes the dice. There's not even any dice in that game. We roll our own dice. So
Nice.
but it's a fantastic tool for that. So you can't go on with it. And there's not, there's other VTTs out there, but the problem is, and this is the beautiful part of it is Fantasy Grounds is not web-based. So you don't have to have internet. You can just use it in your house. You don't require to have anything once you buy it. So that's pretty nice.
Good to hear.
Yep.
But what's going on for us?
Plus, Chuck promised some goodies too.
Yeah.
He bleeds me dry, folks.
You brought it up.
He's the real Strahd. But anyway,
wait, Chucky Winfrey is going to sit there and
now,
give us all new Priuses.
yeah, right.
Look under your chair.
Well, we've been as everybody, if anybody is in the crowd has our rule set, knows that it's crap. Yeah, I mean, I started on Fantasy Grounds with CNC because that's the game of choice, and then
Hey, Scott.
I got introduced to 5e. I had played next games face to face, but never on virtual tabletop.
Mhm.
And the guy was like, "You got to try it on here," and I was like, "Nah." And they had put so much money into it, and I would argue, well, at that time, it was definitely probably the best rule set out there for Fantasy Grounds. There's many more good ones now, like Mike's, his Celestians. It's excellent for 2nd edition. But anyway, it was so easy to teach people how to play. I switched to it because the Castle Crusades one was just lacking everything. I didn't understand. I was just a consumer at the time. I didn't work for the company. So I was just like, damn you, I thought they didn't care. And it just turns out they're just Luddites and they didn't know nothing about it. And the way things are over there with most of the smaller publishers, it's kind of like it's very complicated how it works, but there was no pipeline, so to speak, going from the company to them. So that stuff was just kind of like the Wild West back then. I think we were the first rule set actually on Fantasy Grounds back in 2006, but it was never really developed like a proper rule set. And so we've been working hard on, I've been trying to find developers it'll be 3 years in March that I've been looking for somebody.
I know. I did a YouTube video on building a character in Castles and Crusades for it, right? And I was like, oh man, this is so, I did a fighter or a melee class, right? And then I wanted to do a caster and I stopped because I was like, if I show the caster, I'm kind of scared it'll scare people off,
Yeah. Yeah, because it was basically it still is. It's basically pen and paper and Fantasy Grounds.
Yep.
And so anyway, I won't go into all the back behind the curtain stuff, but the bottom line is it took me years, but I finally got some people to build us out content for it. And then I found a guy to update the rule set, not build a brand new one, which I would like to have done, but that would have been much more expensive. Actually, getting it updated was expensive in a way because our rule set only retails for $10 on there. So, when you're talking about thousands of dollars you spend just to do updates, you got to sell a lot of it. And it's not going to happen. We're not WotC. We have a good fan base and everything, but we know we hope people buy our other stuff, Anyway, so what we've been doing the last year and a half is basically going through all this, trying to find people. I've had people come and go. I even had this is no lie, our module, adventure module line in the ropes. I think I've had 7 different people do that. 7. And I'm yet again about to have someone else do it.
Wow.
Because between people ghosting on us and between the updates with Core RPG, and all that, and with Unity coming on, it's just totally changed everything. I'd have been better off if I would just sit back and waited, until all the smoke cleared. But I didn't think about it. I was really anxious to try to meet people's requests and stuff in the community, and I wanted it for myself. I wanted to be able to play this stuff on there. So, but we're getting ready to. It's been a long process, but it looks like this week, next week. this week, next week, at the latest next week, but probably this week, we're going to release a bunch of stuff on the Forge. We're going to actually be moving everything to the Forge from the Smiteworks store. We had a long discussions with Doug and John about it for a long time because for many varied reasons. And we just want to be able to control our marketing and do sales. We want to do sales and just have more control of everything. You know what I mean? Because
can you tell me a little bit about, or tell what the difference between being on the Fantasy Ground store or the Forge?
well, money wise, it's a contract you work out with them. So that's all. It doesn't really matter about that. That's something you work out an agreement with anyway, right? The percentage. So that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But on the Forge, we can easily gift things if we do raffles or something like that. We can set our own pricing, our own sales, everything. Through the Smiteworks store, you have to work with them and they try to shoehorn in stuff, but typically you kind of go with their sales the way they do them, which is not a bad thing if you don't want to have hands-on. But we want to be able to control our content and make sure that everything goes exactly the way we want to. And it's no reflection on them whatsoever. It's just a choice. You know what I mean? There's a lot of advantages. In fact, Doug was quite anxious to have us move over there because I think they're going to use this sort of as test subjects for things they have planned for the Forge that they don't necessarily have on there, like bundles. What was some other things they were talking about? There's a lot of things actually that they want to kind of do over there. And they're kind of looking, we're thinking what we're going to do is maybe we'll be kind of like the guys that they try this stuff out on, you know.
Mike Celestion puts a good point. Now the release is on your terms. Well, if it goes on the Forge too.
That's
right.
true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
here's
that's
the
a good
thing.
point, Mike.
It's nothing against Smiteworks, but they have two guys tops over there working on the updates for Q&A for stuff that gets submitted to them. Sometimes if it's a busy month, it may be 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's just according. Back when they were having all that stuff with Unity, it was really bad for a while. I can upload something and have it put up like that. I don't have to wait. As long as it passes through our Q&A team.
Mike says
Done.
he's back. They're backed up 4 months.
There you go. So we can either release it this week or wait 4 more months. You know what I mean? If we get it into them and we wait and stuff. And that's nothing on them. They just have so many people. They have so many different, platforms on there, rule sets that they have to, stuff's coming in for them. I get it,
We're talking the Forge site for, and it would be for Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah, it's a new store that they
It's a
just
new
released.
store.
It's been out. How long has it been out, guys? I didn't even know about
Can
it.
someone link
months.
it? Mike, can you link it, Celestion, or link the Forge or someone, or Valfrin link? And if we get multiple links up, that's fine. All right, there we go.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's essentially a store that was built for third-party developers to begin with. Extensions,
Very cool. Thank you.
open content modules, that kind of stuff.
Look at that. Advanced
free
effects
and
by
for
Celestion.
sale.
Yes, Mike's
But
got
then-
stuff on here.
We started looking at it. One of my good friends, actually, he's one of our developers. He
Thank you.
developed the old school Essentials rule set. He's a good friend
Yeah.
of mine, Marcus.
Yep.
And they
Oh,
went and
Bane?
chose to do that. Yeah, Bane. Yeah, we're good
Oh,
buddies.
yeah,
And
he's a
so,
good guy.
well, he just did my whole C series or most of the
Nice.
C series. Oh, he's
spot on.
He's very talented
Yeah,
man.
yeah, he is.
So with his help and another fellow by the name of Nightmare, between those two, we've managed to put out, we've got a brand new Player's Handbook 8th printing that'll be released. We're gonna have
Nice.
a brand new, never seen before Monsters and Treasure 5th printing to be released. The one that was on there before was sort of a mishmash that was done by people in the Old West. It had nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
This one's spot on. Beautiful tokens. I'm really excited about it. So it's just an exact replica of our Monsters and Treasure book. It's got everything in there. It all works, all that good
Chuck,
stuff.
I've got a question.
Ask me.
How will moving to the Forge affect us prior owners of the rule set that we bought through Standard Fantasy Grounds?
Buffering, go to hell. No, I'm joking, folks. Joking. Well, that's the problem. We have struggled with this for months about what to do because originally the plan was we were going to release it on the store and Doug could just trying to send out gift copies to everybody. They don't have that functionality on the Forge. But here's another downside to it. We've just spent, I won't say how much we spent. I'm not allowed to, but we spent close to $10,000 to get it updated. So it behooves us, if we want to survive, to sell it again. Because what we've got, in a sense, is almost a brand new rule set. It does everything it's supposed to do. You can drag and drop characters. It's got all the lighting. It's got everything. Plus, with the guy that we have now on staff full time forever until he dies or we kick him out or he leaves or whatever, he is steadily doing improvements every day. Like we're going to continue to build this new rule set out to have all kinds of unique stuff. We're looking at doing organized play integration and all kinds of cool stuff down the road. So very excited about that. But unfortunately, that means we're probably going to have to sell it on the Forge as a new product.
Yeah.
And they don't have a way for us really to go and say, okay, send out 1,000 copies out or whatever. We're going to just have to resell it, but we're not going to sell it for more than we're selling it now. We're still just going to sell it for $10.
Mike
Now-
Celestian just asked, Bane is your developer for CNC? Rule
No,
set?
no, this was a guy that's not known
No.
to the community. I found
Oh.
him in
There you go.
the University of Iowa. Actually, he's a true pure coder. He knows nothing about he knows about Fantasy Grounds now, but
Dude.
when I found him, he was just a old school dice roller, kind of guy. But he knew Lua really well. He knew XML very well.
Okay.
He knows a lot of codes, a lot of coding. So he was very good. He took some time, looked at it, and said, okay. And next thing I know, he just started making things happen really fast. So it was really nice.
Good.
But anyway, so yeah, we're going to have to sell the rule set over there, unfortunately, but that's just what we're going to have to do. If we can't turn around and spend all that money and then it's not make nothing. I mean, that's crazy,
Yeah.
I hate
As a
it.
previous purchaser, are you
Yeah.
promising me that this will be, an experience that's worth paying for again?
Yes, absolutely.
See,
Yeah,
there
because
you go.
I've
There
busted
you
my
go.
chops to make so.
Yeah, problem solved.
Now it's
Yeah.
it's a different business model than over there because most people don't realize this, but the company had no involvement after we made an agreement with the guys in Finland in 2006 to do the players. They just did the players handbook and some kind of monster book back then, whatever it was. And that was it. Everything that was developed from that point on, the company knew nothing about it. It was Wild West. I'm talking.
That's yeah.
And that's fine, but unfortunately, it's got us in a really bad pickle. We've been on there 14 years, and all of our stuff doesn't work. It's all outdated. I mean, listen. I bought all of it because even before I worked for the company, I loved it, but it was just really in bad shape, and it needed to be fixed. And unfortunately, you don't have a lot of Celestians out there that do it for love. Trust me,
Yeah.
I searched. Doug told me you need to find the unicorn like Mike. And I looked. I even looked down some of Mike's other family members. He doesn't know about that. No, I'm joking. But I looked, and I'm telling you, there was no unicorn for us, unfortunately. Not really. I mean, there were some people who made promises and such, but it didn't pan out. But the guy that I did find, even though it may cost us a lot of money, good job. I'm really happy with it. It's very similar to the 5e rule set in a lot of ways and the 2e rule set because we looked at those, but there are some things we had to do a little differently because of some of the older code that was in it,
Mhm.
and it was either a choice of either stripping it out, rebuilding a whole new rule set and taking another year, or going with what we had and making good quality improvements. And then every time we find a way to do it better, we fix it,
That's good.
I'm real excited about it. I'm real excited about the fact that I'm never going to be able to load it up and do all this, but it's going to be different for us. We're going to sell it for, I think, $9.99. The rule set will come with the rule set. It'll come with a quick start guide, which comes with basically like 5e, like an SRD, that kind of thing.
Cool.
It has an adventure that contains, teach you how to play the game. It's got 4 or 5 classes. It's got monsters in it. It's got spells in it, treasure, everything. But it's just $10. And then you can pick and choose what you want to buy. If you want to buy the player's handbook, you want to buy the monster and treasure. We've got one adventure we're releasing with it this week, C1. Then we're going to release a new release every 2 weeks. We're going to have new stuff for the rest of the year. Every 2 weeks, there'll be
Nice.
something new coming out. We've got the Adventures Backpack coming up. We're going to probably do the Castle Keeper's Guide. Now, of course, this is all assuming that people buy it and they want it and they use it. If we end up not selling anything, I don't know what'll happen then. I guess I'll just go cry in a corner, and keep what I've got. But that's the goal. Anyways, I hope it works because I really want us to do well on Fantasy Grounds. We've been on there for 14 years, like I said, and
Thanks, Doc.
I don't know. I just want to see it happen. I want to see it being solid. I want to be able to load up modules and it all work great. We're gonna if the C series does good, the next series is gonna be the A series probably, and then after that we're gonna go off and do some crazy stuff. We're looking at actually doing a whole product line of VTT design adventures.
Nice.
Just for
Chuck, would
VTT,
you say
yeah.
the content that's coming with the base rule set at this point would be somewhere like comparing it to your white box set that you guys have?
That'd be
Where
good,
would
but
you
I
say
don't
it
own one,
is?
Boffrin. I don't own one, so I can only say maybe. I need to get one of those. Actually, make Steve make me one. But yeah, sort of. It's designed to teach you how to play.
That's
Okay,
cool.
the content that's in there. Yeah, because before the Adventure Museum 4, which is not what is it, guys? You guys in the crowd know that. What was that? What's the adventure that goes with it right now? Rising Knight. It
Yeah.
says in there, introductory adventure. Well, that's true and not true. The last room will TPK anybody.
Yeah.
It's not really an introductory module. It was in a module that somehow got attached to being a good module to run for low level characters. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually good for teaching you how to play a game. The adventures we have in there now, me and Bane kind of took a couple that we had quick starts and we combined them and crafted one that's really good. It teaches you how to make rolls. It explains the system with primes and non-primes, which is our mechanical system called the Siege Engine. Those are things you need to understand. Not have because you're not always going to have a DM that's going to run a game that's been running games for 20 years and says, "Oh, I don't need this. I can teach you." If you've got somebody who's brand new as a dungeon master, they kind of need to be taught too, and that's the way it's designed. It's designed to teach players and castle keepers, that's our version of the dungeon master, how to run the game. Along with having an adventure, you know what I mean? And there's enough in there that if you wanted to, you could make your own adventures. There's enough monsters, there's enough everything. You could do your own stuff if you wanted to. You're not going to have everything, obviously, you know what I mean? But that's why you can purchase other books later on. And we're going to have regular sales and raffles, and we're going to try to support it as much as we can, obviously, and do good with it. It's not so much about us trying to make a lot of money. We just want to recover what we invested in it and use it to expose our company to new people.
Quick question for you, Chuck. It's off
Yeah.
topic. Grape says, when is TLG going to start their OP Endless Worlds up?
Oh, he's very funny. He's
Oh, he's
actually on the
busting your
admin.
balls?
He's an admin board. Yeah, it's just great being goofy. It's in alpha stage right now. We're actually building out all the internal stuff. We will probably have a beta test at GaryCon. I've got 30 games lined up for GaryCon, and we're going to do. Those are all physical games, and we're going to test out all the registration stuff through it.
Are
It's
you
a
gonna
slow
be in
roll
person
because.
at GaryCon?
Am I? Oh yeah, we always it's required for us to go to GaryCon. That's our main con
I
we go
know.
to. So yeah, I'll be there for sure.
Oh.
Got a lot planned at GaryCon. We've got Steve's running a game. I'm not going to run any games. I'm just going to be supporting the organized play this year because we want to make sure all the games get filled and everybody has a good time.
Yep.
We're going to be giving away a lot of stuff. We have our own area for all of our games. So if you're playing in one of our games or you're running one of our games, you're all in the same area. So we can come up. We're going to be doing raffles. We're going to have Steve and other company people coming up. We're going to be
Thanks,
giving
guys.
away stuff. It's going to be good. It'll be a good time.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm
Tina-
excited about it.
Tino asked a question, Monkey Boogers, way back about running it on a hosted server. I didn't know how to answer that. I don't know how far back that was. But for any of you, anyone want to take that one up? I'm trying to find it. Wait a minute, almost there. Does FG allow you to host the program on a rent a server service?
No, I
I'm
don't
not
think.
sure.
I
Maybe
don't think
classic, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll say this: I'm not sure the license actually allows it.
Okay.
I mean, theoretically, like let's say you were able to remote into a different machine, and you were running it
Gotcha.
remotely from a computer. These are hypotheticals now, nothing, concrete or license violating, potentially. But that might solve some people's issues or give them some ideas on where to look to maybe think of inspiration.
There you go.
Bill, I think that'll happen this year. I think
I like
Chuck
that
will make
reply.
it up to PAX Unplugged in December. I think that's a
I'm
long way
pushing
off.
for that. I think this year
Yeah.
we're obviously GaryCon. We're going to try to go to North Texas. I think I'm begging them to let me go to North Texas at least with some of the crew, and then
I told them Reaper.
we've got PAX Unplugged and maybe Game Hole or Origins. We got to decide between. the two.
Oh,
Next year is going to be a much bigger year for us because once this organized play rolls out
yeah.
and all of our
Wow.
holy priests start spreading the holy text throughout the world, we'll have a lot more presence in cons too. I hope so. That's part of the plan, anyways. I'm trying to find a proper reply to Obsidian Risk in here while you guys talk.
All right. So what was your you said, what special things are we going to do here? Because if I may separate this and do the physical giveaway first, because if this is going to be a Fantasy Grounds TLG thing, I may want to do then re-sign up. So what we
All right, let's do this.
All right, here we go,
Excuse
everyone.
me. I apologize. So we don't have it out yet, but once it's available on the Forge, whoever wins, let's give away.
This is for Fantasy Grounds Forge. The sign up will be separate. I'm going to do this completely separate.
Yeah, do not go to Fantasy Grounds store and buy anything. Do
Right,
not,
right.
because it's the moment when this goes live on the Forge, everything on the store will go dark.
Okay.
If you own it, you get to keep it, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're going to move. We're moving
Yeah,
the store in a
yeah.
sense.
All right.
So let's do this. Let's give away 3 rule sets.
Wow.
All right.
Yep.
The
Let's
new
give
ones.
away-
The new. Okay, for Fantasy
Yeah.
Grounds Forge. Okay.
Yep. You have 3 rule sets, and let's give away.
Don't do the drawings for this yet. This drawing is going to be for the physical. I'm going to reset
we're going to
it.
we'll do a package here. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It'll
All
have
right.
a rule set in it.
Yep.
we're gonna do a player's handbook, so they don't have to buy it.
Yep.
We'll do a monster of treasure, so they don't have to buy it.
Wow.
And I'll
Nice.
throw in a PDF and an adventure that they can use in it too. I'll say.
So that's 4 things 3 times.
Actually, no PDF. I'll give them C1.
Okay.
C1. Okay. So
There you
so
go.
three of these, and I'm gonna
With
do the
the
physical
PDF with it.
first. I'm gonna do the physical first, and then I'm gonna restart it for everyone. Okay. So
Just
let's
make
do.
sure you have a Fantasy Grounds account too. If you're
Yeah.
gonna-
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
you're
make
gonna
sure you get one of
so
those.
3.
Good point.
Balfour's like, I'm signing up for this. Don't yet. 3 rule sets 3 times. Rule set, player's handbook, monsters and treasures, and C1. Wow. Wow.
So
And I'll
register-
I'll give them PDFs of each of that too.
Yeah.
So if you don't have an account there, register with the website. That's
Yep.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then get the free demo.
So right now, I'm going to close it out, and we're going to give this away for the physical. Okay. Then I'm going to reopen it up, and then we're gonna put in anyone who wants to do those for the rest of the show. Here we go. Let's do this first. Let me close this out.
What are you giving away?
I'm giving away Swamp Light and Treasures of Greyhawk, Chuck. So go
Oh,
for
nice.
it. Yeah, reprints,
No,
of
I'm
course.
not, I don't.
All right, so that's what this is for first, and then we'll reopen it, and then I'll do those 3. Wow, that's a lot of.
That's what I ran last night.
Yeah. Oh man.
Nice.
Very, very cool. All right,
Good stuff.
I'm gonna close this out for this, and then we're gonna reopen it for the others, and hopefully I don't crash the stream. Why would me? Who am I? All right, closing it out. Here we go. The winner of these 2 is Commander Meerkat. You can just say
All
you're
right,
on the claim. Oh, there, Commander
I like
Meerkat.
that
Are
name.
you on? Commander Meerkat.
Commander
You know,
Meerkat,
thank you
have
for the
won.
hype train. To claim these 2, Commander Meerkat, please claim it.
I'm right here. No.
I want to make sure Commander Meerkat.
Yeah,
Is
Chuck's
Commander
got 5
Meerkat's in
accounts.
chat. All right, so
Right.
Commander Meerkat's in chat, and all right, now I will get with Commander Meerkat and get that taken
Okay.
care of. Now I'm going to reopen this up. Give me 10 seconds here. All
Can
right.
answer. Let's answer. We got a question. If
please
there's
answer
a
the
map
questions while I'm
size
doing
for
this,
maps,
please.
Thank you,
Anna's
Anna.
map might be too big
Not
for
yet,
it. Yes,
not yet,
Ross.
guys.
Yes.
Not yet. I haven't opened it up yet. Go ahead.
Yes.
So, Laren, please tell us or buffering what the
Yeah,
official
so-
numbers are.
So the suggested numbers for Anna's maps or anyone's maps would be roughly 2000 by 2000 dimensionally. File size, you want to keep that between maybe 2 megs up to 10 at the most, depending on, the quality you want. I think a medium quality map would be good for Fantasy Grounds, a good happy balance. But when you shrink down a map like that, you have to take into consideration the math. So if she has a scale set to that particular map, which a lot of her maps do have a scale for hexes and such, keep that in mind mathematically. So when you scale it down, what does that represent in Fantasy Grounds? Because the scale is going to change. So you got to keep that in mind when you're resizing maps. So just a heads up on that. Even though you don't have hexes painted on there, you still have the scale. So that scale needs to be kind of kept in mind when you're resizing maps. If you find a random map on the internet, quite often it's not square or it's no longer the original scale that it was before. And when you shrink that down and racially, you kind of have to have the math in there too to keep the scale. It depends on what your needs are, but just keep that in mind so anywhere from 2 to 10 megs file size, and then dimensionally, I wouldn't go any more. It's 2048 by 2048, and that'll cover your entire screen. So you don't, that's a
good to
pretty
know.
good sized map.
And
Really
now I
good
can
to
tell that I since I love big maps that crash computers. So
Oh, yeah.
I've done way
Yes.
numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's my and in my campaign I force feed my players and their clients, and actually if they have good computers and you have good internet connection, you can I use maps regularly up to 10,000
God.
pixels.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
And I
yeah.
use them about 35 to 40 megabytes. 50 megabytes usually crash someone's computer.
Yes.
But-
yeah.
All of our maps that we had to get redone, or we're
but I
doing for
use-
these.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dan,
so,
I'm sorry.
yeah, let's go. And I also don't have that many counters on, maybe 20, 30 counters
That's
at
not bad.
tops. And
That's not bad.
and it actually works, so to speak. So you
Yeah.
can, but this is Unity. Old
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
If
no.
you want to
Yeah.
use maps, go for Unity. The old one, skip it. 32 bits, it crashes immediately if you want to.
Yeah.
My maps don't function on the old ones, so to speak. And
Yeah, we
when
had
you
to-
downsize, you can't use text disappear. So I'm
That's
sorry.
right.
John,
So-
please go
That's
on.
right.
No, I was
Tell
just
you
gonna
guys
say
a little
because
story.
she creates maps like we do for print, and you have to have. I mean, it's a totally different world. There's no 72
Mhm.
DPI going on. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not
you got
web
a
based. So we have to
300.
take that and then build down. You know, and it's
Yep.
it can drag a computer down like nobody's business.
Yep.
Yep.
For sure.
Mike said he recommends for devs 4K by 4K. That's what he said for
Yep.
Fantasy Grounds.
That can work. So
Okay,
yep.
that's what
There is leeway upwards if your
Okay.
players have good computers and the internet connections are good. You can
Cool.
you can go upwards.
That's pretty good. 4K, that's decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that kills it is depending on the grid can cause problems too. Hex grid
Oh.
seems to be much more troublesome than square grids. If you
Okay.
have a standard square grids, and my normal thing is to have a square grid that is 10 pixels or 20 pixels, and it seems to work fairly well. But sometimes odd hex grids, especially big hex grids with lots of pixels in each hex,
Yeah.
seems to kill things completely.
Okay.
So
It's good to know.
yeah, there's probably something more mathematically how hexes are drawn versus how squares are drawn.
Correct.
Hexes are way
Probably more data.
Yeah, exactly. Way more computing intensive. So skip the hex grids and use square grids. So done
Okay.
like encounter maps, I have no problem with. But if I
Right.
do an overland area map where I use hexes, and voila, it goes haywire. So yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Any other questions out there? This has been a very informative for me, and I'm assuming a lot of people have gotten a lot of little tidbits here and there out of it. I've really appreciated this discussion tonight, Laren. Thank you. This has been great. And Chuck, of course, Chuck always steps up. I mean, my gosh, look at this giveaway. Holy jeez. You know, just remember, you're not getting it tonight. Those three,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right.
You're getting it when
You
it's
should get it
when it's
somewhere around
available in the
October.
forge.
So-
What's that?
Right. Well, it'll be by next week. Whenever we get it up there, just
Yeah.
you get the names, we'll get the count.
I will.
information, all
Rule
that
set,
stuff.
Player's Handbook, Monsters and Treasures, and C1. All four of those 3 times.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, it's like a Kickstarter. Yeah, very cool.
We'll hook you guys up for sure. And there'll be more
Excellent.
stuff coming on down the road because we really want to promote it. So, and like I said, I know there's a lot of people, trust me, I understand, but I'm telling you, face to face, I love it, man. I love it. I wouldn't do without it for nothing. I mean, even if I don't want to use the dynamic lighting, well, I do love that, but more line of sight. There's just so many other tools on there.
Yep.
It's awesome.
I agree. Like I said, Chuck, when you're ready, we'll work with you and we'll get something going in the college too. If you want to do a fantasy. Grounds
Oh yeah,
component.
it is time, my brother.
But yeah, on a
Getting there.
side note, all the cool stuff is great, but remember, the key is actually using it.
Simple,
Not just
yeah.
letting it sit there.
Yeah.
Start slow, work your way up. Don't try and jump off the cliff.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I'm hoping
That's
we
what
can
I
have a
did.
lot of good. Well, that's one of the things. Yeah, I think we all did that to begin with. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm hoping also with the academy that we can have some permanent stuff over there. Like, some
Oh,
classes.
yeah.
We'll talk about all that because I want to
yeah.
I'm going to try to use that to push it to actually make it a big part of our organized play too. I'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can organize something.
Yep.
So, why don't we wrap up, do some shout outs here, talk about what's coming up for everyone. Very informative discussion tonight, and I'll tell you, man, I didn't even realize, but I got a brutal stream schedule this week, which I'll talk about. I mean, 5 straight nights. I mean, it's brutal.
Wow.
I didn't. I was
Wow.
like, holy shit.
What did you do?
What did I do? I probably got myself divorced. Yeah, that's
well, that's
probably
what's
Oh,
happened.
wow.
He's obviously hell be streaming from my motel room every
That
one
couch
day.
is
So, you know.
looking great.
and by the way,
Yeah.
last night, thanks. It was monster number last night. Thank you. It was
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it was fun.
We had
Yeah.
a blast last night. I saw Ed. I didn't realize it, but Ed and Luke were actually posting on Twitter as the game was going on. Like, Ed's like, I don't know if we're going to survive this. He posted this on
Oh,
Twitter.
jeez.
I'm like, oh my god! So that was pretty cool. That they were, yeah. So that was neat. So, Laren, thank you. So anything you want to talk about? Shout out.
Yeah, sure. So if you guys are wanting to kind of get inspiration or kind of just get some general pointers or such, you can just come on into the community. We have people that answer questions. You don't necessarily have to sign up for lessons or anything. Those are
please
kind
link-
of people
please
that
link it.
Yep.
Yep.
And then
She's
there
working.
is also another event that I'm going to be hosting, and Anna will be there, is Mapper's Delight, which is coming up February
yeah.
19th.
Yep.
That'll be something that I'm looking forward to. That's something I do every 2 years because I don't want to do it yearly because it's a little too often. But I like new blood and to show off people's work and their art. And then other than that, we have this right now going on. Is if you're into Traveler, that's something we have going on all month, and we're going to have Seth Skorkowski coming up here on the 21st. We're going to have some lessons. We've already had 2 symposiums and that sort of thing. So we got that going on right now. And in April on Alien Day 4/26, already got some confirmation from Free League Publishing. I'm working with a couple Uber fans that really collect a bunch of props and really cool looking real life stuff for Alien. And then I'm working on getting Jeanette Goldstein on there. We know her as Ramirez for Aliens. So I'm trying to get her on there.
Really?
So I don't
That
know
would be
if
awesome.
I don't know if she will or not yet, but I'm going to get one of the cast members.
Go for it, man. That's awesome.
And try to get the yeah. So she's, and I asked her if I can if we can do the role play. I'm going to be Hicks, of course.
Of course.
And yeah, I'm going to be that guy. And I'm going to do the famous line on here. So yeah, so that's just something I got coming up.
That's awesome.
April. So Alien Day is 4/26, which is LV 4/26 is why they chose that day. But
okay, yeah, it makes sense.
So that's what I got coming up. So,
well, thank you so very much for a really nice discussion, intriguing, and hopefully the audience got a lot out of this. And note that you don't need to use the entire program to you don't need to sink yourself into it unless you really want to, and you can take it in little bits. And there's definitely a lot
and can I interject, Jay, real quick on that?
Please do.
Something I will tell you guys out there. I played for years on it, and I subscribed because I just couldn't afford it. But they have some awesome sales during the year, and if you wait long enough, usually that Christmas sale, I picked it up. I picked it up for like $85 off when I bought it full, the ultimate full. But I probably subbed for 2 or 3 years because I just didn't have it in my budget. So that's a good way of doing it too. You don't have to worry about. I mean, yeah, you're kind of spending money, but we all go through drive-through, right? It's the same thing. So.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I got my copy basically via Steam gift cards. I bought hot dogs and junk food at a gas station and earned points and traded them in for Steam cards, and that's how I bought Fantasy Grounds.
Wow.
And also shows like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shows. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. So subscribe to the game will keep going. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's see here. Bal, what's going on, man? You got anything rolling? Gary Con stuff prep.
Yep, Gary Con's coming in March, folks. We are definitely looking for online game masters. We're working on trying to get some interesting online guests also. So people are just wanting to come and enjoy the games. We want to see you there. Laren, we've got, what is it, next week, Laren, with Seth Skorkowski is going to be on over at the Fantasy Grounds College. He's going to be there for Traveler. But he's also an author, and he does reviews on YouTube. Fantastic channel if you're looking for some reviews on modules that are out there for different systems, not just Call of Cthulhu or Alien. He's also done classic AD&D modules too.
Oh, wow.
Call of Cthulhu and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like Chuck got something. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, if you go to Gary Con, you can meet Mike Miller, and he might autograph a book for you. This is one of his books, his book for Traveler.
Oh,
And
nice.
I love it. I've read it like 5 times. Yeah, it's good stuff. That's another good thing about Gary Con I love. I'm not trying to change the subject, but I don't know. I love that con. You can meet people and you don't have to stand in line for 15 hours. It's fantastic.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah. And you're going to be buying me a lot of drinks.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. All your friends told me that.
Oh, there you go. So,
there you go. You noticed this time. Yep.
I hadn't done that in a while.
No, but you noticed it right away. Normally you talk for a minute afterwards.
Tell him, man. Tell him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anna, what's up?
Well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm sorry I haven't got the heraldry update out yet, but I got stuck in some both my a little bit of prepping for my own game that took me 2 days off. I wanted to do it, and I also did some and this ties into today's topic because I got so carried away when I figured out I have my trademarked porta potty scale on my kind of area maps that are 5 feet per pixel. And I was like, how can I get a detailed adventure map that you can use on with the like putting in VTT properly? And so I figured out a way to upscale them to 10 pixels per 5 feet, because then all of a sudden they work. You can put buildings and stuff like that, and it looks fairly okay with not too much Photoshop work, so to speak. It looks okay.
Nice.
So that's one of the things I want to talk about on the fantasy mapping show. So that is coming. So I spent a couple of days figuring out, because workflow is, if you want to do maps consistently and produce effectively, you have to not be able to sit and tinker for thousands or hundreds or tens of hours. You need to do things in an efficient way that looks good, so to speak. So that was part of it. And I cracked one of my important nuts in that kind of workflow to go into. Now I can basically go from world scale to encounter maps and dungeon maps, and in not too much, and it's a standardized process that works very quickly. It doesn't look perfect by any means, but it looks decent for not too much work, and you can make enormous locations and hold hundreds of square miles fairly quickly using this.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh, thanks, Chuck.
So that is coming, and there will be a new update, a new preview update with some border changes and some stuff on the 2022 edition maps coming up this week as well. Yeah, plus the heraldry update is coming with some extra heraldry. Yeah.
There is something I wanted to mention before we go.
Sure.
That I forgot is everyone here except Jay. We're kind of just getting to know each other, but I've met all of you at different points in this journey of playing role-playing games.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I cherish a lot, and I appreciate it. I want to thank all of you for helping me keep this mentality going with, staying into the role-playing hobby. Like Anna, for instance, I met her a couple of years ago. It was a Patreon of hers. I had asked her if she would help me with a student that I had that was kind of struggling, and she wanted to kind of get into the industry, and Anna kind of took her under her wing, and I told Anna, I said, that's what I want. That's my gift to her and for me, is just to help her out. Now that individual's working for a company, and she's doing maps and that sort of thing. And
she works for Kobold Press.
Yes.
A lot now. So yep.
And then Boffrin here, him and I had met early on when the academy first started, and he had encouraged me to keep my mind open and not be so egocentric on one thing, and to try to keep things balanced and look at things different ways, and accept that not everyone wants to use virtual tabletop and that sort of thing. So he's given me that in a good inner connection with the community outside of Fantasy Grounds, and also the conventions scheme. And then Chuck here, he and I had met through Fantasy Grounds, and he and I had some good conversations a couple of years ago before he started with Trollord, and we had some aspirations and goals and all kinds of things that we connected on. And I think he's got a really sweet heart. He's been a good supporter. He's been really sweet person, and I can't ask for better people, and that's why I do this, because I like all the interaction that we've had over the years.
Thank you, sir.
It's important.
Thank you.
And
so
Jay,
Laren,
go ahead.
Real quick, go ahead and say your bit about Jay, and then I'll come back.
Jay, I'm just starting to get to know Jay. I'm really interested in his miniatures, and I'm really trying hard to think of a way to incorporate what he does into a virtual tabletop. It doesn't have to necessarily be Fantasy Grounds, but a way to kind of bring that collection that he has to the virtual tabletop, so that he's not just sitting on them. He's actually able to show them and use them more often. So
20,000 miniatures.
Yep.
So I was going to ask, what's on the docket for next month at the Academy, Laren?
I think we're gonna basically we have a traveler month. We were thinking about doing another rule set. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to pan out, but we do definitely have some events coming up. And I definitely want to start looking at doing some training for D&D and doing some kind of or role-playing games period, but also some conventions, getting involved with those a little bit more, working with
Excellent.
Smiteworks, and getting the word out to just show the platform like we're doing today. So next month we don't have a rule set agenda, but we do have weekly and monthly events that we try to roll out. So
Gotcha. Cool. So it's like 7-Eleven. You may not always see customers hanging out, but we're always open.
That's right. That's it.
Yeah.
Tim, you got to watch the beginning. You got to watch the vid and note that you should be able to get a lot of use out of this for your Rovers of the Barrens game for maps, especially, so we can put them in, because I know that was a request. So, all right. Well, here's what Chuck. Anything else you want to mention tonight? Thanks for hopping on.
I just want to thank everybody for being so supportive and being so cool, and it's been a really tough couple of years for all of us, but I think we've turned a corner a little bit. I think this is going to be a really good year. I think we've adapted to things, and challenges, but I think we're all going to have a really good 2022. I think it's going to be awesome. I have good feelings about it, and the community here and that you guys have got, that we've become a part of, it's been a real blessing. It's been awesome. I just really appreciate it. And Steve loves it too. And we're very excited about the fundraiser that's coming up. We were talking yesterday about the adventure he's planning for it already, so that's going to be good. And got a lot of good stuff coming out this year. We're going to have our whole Planescape product line coming out eventually. I think Star Siege is going to come out, which is our sci-fi and siege engine game at some point. Cool. We got a lot. Well, we've always got a lot going on, so we'll see. But we've got a lot of stuff going on that I can't really talk a whole lot about, but it involves certain people that are in this stream right now. And hopefully we're going to have some really good content for that's going to be very, very much appreciated and accepted, I hope, by everybody. That's going to come out with sort of an old school kind of feel to it. Our stuff's already like that. Our Castle Crusade stuff is, but we got some new stuff coming out. I think it's going to be good. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. I'm excited. What can I say?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
lots of work.
I turned around and realized I had 4 streams the first week, 4 streams the second week of January, 4 streams the fourth week of January. I got 5 this week coming up. So 5 straight days.
You finally made it, partner.
Yep.
I know.
See?
I was like,
yep.
Yeah. So here's and I don't have banners for all of them yet because we're finalizing some of this stuff. So Wednesday night, Legends and Lore. Right now, it's the artwork of Greyhawk. Alex knows what's going on. We may have someone very special, or we may not. But we're going to talk.
I'll see, Jay, if I can make it.
Yes.
My art is known throughout the 4 worlds.
Yes.
Or whatever.
So we're going to talk about Greyhawk, all those great module covers and the insides and artwork from, it's going to be a neat discussion, no matter whether we have a special guest or not. So we're preparing for both. All right, and that starts the week off of 5 straight days with streams. That's a Wednesday. Thursday, I have a game. I've just finalized, I think, what I'm doing, and it's going to be the adventure group, the Night Stalkers, out of Altamira, the highest level group we have in Altamira. Kind of, we'll be doing that because then after that, Friday night is a fantasy mapping show. All right, that's already coming up, Anna. So we have me, and Alyssa have a great we had Fantasy
Yep.
Mapping Show Friday night. So, Anna, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to discuss?
Well, we're going to, both Alyssa and me, going to talk about what we're up to, and from a little bit more technical perspective, because in the Fantasy Mapping Show, we want to go into the cartography aspect of things. But so I will talk about my encounter maps, map updates, and a little bit of technology ideas and stuff like that I'm working with, and the project in more technical detail, so to speak. And then also get a chance for everybody in the show to just ask us questions. And I'm sure Alyssa has some real cool things in the pipeline that hopefully she can talk about too.
That would be
So,
cool.
so most of it, yeah. So and come and ask us things and stuff. So that will be the plans for the Fantasy Mapping Show in January.
So, Anna, your map in the background at McMillan is another distraction, just like Eric Boyd said last night. Is that your campaign map? Is that your campaign map?
It's in Fantasy Grounds, and
It's
it is the outside for Shieldlands. This is the outside of the Dragon Hide caves.
Super high resolution.
This is, if you zoom in here, I can zoom in here, and eventually you can see there are some icons here. So there
you
are
can see real like people on the ground.
Yeah,
it's like from space.
And if I zoom out, you can get the sense of how this map is 10 pixels per 5 feet.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it shows a mile by roughly 1 by 1 mile.
Yeah.
And you can see every tree, and you can see stuff, so to speak. So that's the area. So I have my whole campaign area mapped at this level, so to speak. Everywhere, every tree, everything in 1,000 square miles is mapped at this level. There will be prints of this next year. That's the thing. Yeah, there will be prints of this, and I will show some Dragon Hide caves. Show a little bit what my dungeon maps will look like and stuff that are set to 20 pixels per 5 feet. So there will be more of that on the Fantasy Mapping Show. Yep.
Great.
And giveaways.
Yes. Oh yeah, because now Troller Games and Frog God, are always.
Yep, they will outdo each other, so we get it's a good.
Well, 2 each is fine. With all gift certificates is wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. So here we have Saturday. It's morning. Okay, because we got the vice president of sales for My Mini Factory playing, and he lives in Italy, so we have to have it in the morning. The 3D sculptor Christine Van Patten and her husband Little Bones is playing, Mike Disney and Bill Crafter, Scarn, and the Adventures of Recovery. So there you go, and that'll be that's 8th level. So and Saturday morning, that's my Saturday. It's a Saturday morning special this week. Then Gabbin, I have no idea what I'm doing for next week's Gabbin, but I'll worry about that. I'm off tomorrow from work, which is great. And then the week after, this is a Saturday night special. The Slav Squad returns. So look for that too. So we got a lot of fun things coming on this month. So much content. Lastly, we're almost there on finalizing who's going when for There Be Dragons, the next Greyhawk Mega Stream fundraiser event. 3 days. All right.
Wow.
Benefiting St. Jude. We have at least 9 streams. All the logos that are up have committed to it, and that's 9. So we may have a couple more than that. So we'll be going 3 days. So there will be some streams on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. All right. Yep. 9 days of content there. All right. Let's do these giveaways. Okay. I will take your information down, and then we will get once it's up. Chuck will. Yeah. Of course, you're looking forward to killing something, Tim. You wouldn't if you would be Tim if you weren't. So. Last call. This is for, remember, you got to have Fantasy Grounds usage for CNC content. You got the rule set, 8th edition rule set, Player's Handbook, Monsters and Treasures, and C1, the adventure. All 4 of those, and we're giving away 3 of those. All right. Are we ready? Closing it out. We'll rapid fire this. First winner, Hager. Congrats.
All right.
Hager. I have you in Discord so I can get to you easily.
Congrats.
Second winner, Balfrin.
Oh, Lord. Kidding me.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Third winner, Odysseus BB.
Let's do one more, Jay.
We're doing 4. Wow.
One more.
Fourth one, That is awesome. Fourth winner.
It's Jay.
Rigged.
GD. GD.
Oh, nice.
Yes. There you go. GDTRFB
Congrats,
1995.
Congrats
Awesome,
on your
everyone. Grats.
Awesome.
Grats. I think I have all 4 of you in Discord, correct? I have Discord connections to all of you. So that it'll be, no, I will get Chuck the list. And
Don't worry,
when
Chuck
that's up-
has me.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, that is awesome. So thanks all. We're gonna we'll raid into Bones tonight because they're playing. I alternate
you're a
between
mess,
Bones
man.
and Darling on these nights because they're playing a D&D game. So we'll raid into Bones this time. Thanks, Laren, for this, and Balfron for hopping in, and for Chuck for all your generosity, and for Anna for asking some
Hey.
great questions.
Don't forget Minnie.
Oh yes, maybe.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
Minnie,
come on.
So.
Yeah, we have to have
Yeah,
some
maybe.
more treats for
Yeah.
Minnie.
The Greyhawk dog. The Greyhawk hound.
Yes.
Mhm.
What a great way to end this week. Just know 5 next week, 5 straight days. I'm gonna be so in trouble. But
We're gonna make sure we ask you a bunch of questions while you're playing the game.
Yeah.
my gosh, but it'll be fun. We'll have a great time, and we'll keep things rolling here. The community is really getting stronger and stronger. Oh, one last thing. I have been contacted back by the director of Wizards D&D division, and I have a meeting set up first week in February. Okay, so there we go. So
Yay.
something's happening on that end. Who knows if it's going to go anywhere, but we have that. I can't, just to talk. That's all. All right,
Okay.
so that's all. Just to talk about the
Yeah.
community.
They
That's-
will send an NDA so then they
Yes,
can tell you
they'll
all the
say,
goodies
"Shut
that you
it."
can't tell
Yeah.
any of us.
So just note that hopefully that doesn't go south. I'm going to be just putting that out
Let me
there.
know if they
that
send
we
an
finally
NDA.
got it,
Let me
yeah.
know. They will tell you all the cool stuff, and you can't tell
Yes.
any of us.
We're going
Yep.
to see Little Bones now here because
Yep.
we rated Darling last week, and Little Bones is playing the next 2 Saturdays, by the way. So she's playing in both. All right.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you all.
Awesome.
See you all. See you all in a couple days. I got 2 days off here. See you Wednesday night. What am I doing now? What button am I hitting?
You
Oh,
guys
I gotta
have a great week.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Talk to
everyone.
you. All righty, let me set the raid up real quick here, and then we will. And if you can afterwards, you can always open up Darling too, because you can have 2 things open and get credit for both. By the way, that works. All right, setting it up here. Let's see what we get. Dun, 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 dun. Over 80. Oh my gosh. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you Wednesday. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Weekend's over. Duh. I know. My brain's fried.
Next couple of hours still left.
Yeah. Alright, boom, 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 boom. So let me set this up. Let me make sure I can hear her. Alright, and this. Thank you all.